Right, dear friends, gamers, thinkers, welcome back to Tales of Praxis. I'm your host, Aaron Suduko, philosopher of game narrative, founder of With a Terrible Fate, withaterriblefate.com. If you're just tuning in, is your home for everything to do with the storytelling of video games, an online publication dedicated just to digging into what makes their stories tick and so special from an analytical perspective that celebrates how great they are as true fans of the medium as a mode of storytelling. Sorry to be a few minutes late to the stream. Had a combination of some OBS challenges and some four-legged little girl challenges. Evie had decided she discovered a new toy besides her favorite squeaky bone, little ball which she hid under the couch. But you can hear the squeaky bone remains a favorite too. So she's rambunctious, full of energy because she's supposed to heal that leg, which is preventing her from getting as much exercise as she ordinarily would outside. So we'll see how she cooperates or doesn't with this stream. But I'm delighted to be digging back into Tales of Zestiria with you. It's a new week, more of the same story, but a bit of a, I don't want to say new perspective on it for me, but at least a renewed vigor with which I'm diving into the Tales series because I finally finished the story for Tears of the Kingdom this past weekend. I don't think I realized how fully absorbed into that world and story I'd gotten because it was really taking up more of my mental overhead than I'd realized, and being able to close the book on it in a really satisfying way. I think I enjoyed the story at the end of it. I have a lot of views that I'm still working through on it, but anyway, suffice to say, now that I've put down the new Zelda for the moment, I am definitely feeling refreshed and ready to tackle the Tales series again. Not as if we really ever stepped away from it, but it's just a different take on it now. We're going full force, full steam ahead into Sorey's journey as the new shepherd. You might recall briefly last time, we got a lot of new developments in the story and just learned a lot more about the world. Mikleo insisted on becoming Lila's sublord and coming along on the journey with Sorey as a seraph who's part of the shepherd's, I don't know if flock is the right word there, but who has gained the power of armatization with Sorey using the ritual ceremonial weapon, the bow, that we found during our explorations of the ruins last time. We also successfully managed to bring back a Lord of the Land to this area, restoring a domain of purification, I think is the right term, or benevolence maybe, the antithesis of malevolence. One of those, which required getting the pure vessel of water from a pure source, which Mikleo froze, and we brought back to Lady Lake, and found the devout, albeit a bit beaten down, priest to worship the seraph who's going to serve as the Lord of the Land. So we walked in on him kind of sadly dealing with a parishioner or worshiper, whatever the right term is, one of his putative acolytes, offering him a bribe, I think, just kind of underscoring how corrupt Lady Lake and I guess humanity at this stage in its history is. And then finally we had to actually get the seraph who would serve as the Lord of the Land, who had transformed into a Hellion, kind of corrupted by all of the malevolence in the area, which was how we learned that Hellions can spawn not just from humans, but also from seraphim, which was quite the revelation. But we worked through all of that. Sorey was able to team up with everyone else in the party to stay the Hellion's fury and actually purify him, who turned out to be Uno and is now serving as the Lord of the Land. And I think just before our break, Sorey was summoned by, I want to say, the Chancellor of either the whole Highland Kingdom or else Lady Lake, to go up to the castle, the delightfully named Rountabel, to meet with the leadership there. So the Chancellor seemed a little suspicious the first time we met him. It'll be interesting to see how the politics of the region and world intersect with the sacred quest that Sorey is on as the shepherd, and how those politics interact or conflict with what he's trying to do, or otherwise seek to use him as a symbol for their own ends, as is so often the case. So, without further ado, let's jump back in. We did just get this Lord of the Land, so I'll try to recollect the whole system. Yeah, adding another complicated system to the game. So you get Lords of the Land who are able to exert domains that kind of purify the various regions of the world. And then based on kind of your progress and I think the amount of grades you have, you can, get different boons that improve your abilities in battle. Yeah, that's right, you raise the blessing level through grade, which then gives you access to more boons. Let's see what we have on the menu. You can pay money for fast travel. Don't love having to pay for it, but I love having access to it. Treasure regen, very good. I don't think we lose anything by allocating all of the boons we have to the available boons to choose from, since right now the available boons don't exceed our total boon points, or whatever you want to call them. Super. Oh, and we can offer up items to the Lord of the Land to improve our grade, which is very different from most of the other games where it's primarily or solely tied to battle. Yeah, so again, see the difference in a game like this versus the much earlier Dawn of the New World that we were playing beforehand. Like, grade has evolved from being something that is purely tied to New Game Plus mechanics, which we've talked a lot about, even though we've never really seen them in action because we haven't done a New Game Plus, to now having more uses than that. There's still a grade shop at the end of the game when you roll into New Game Plus, but it also has all this in-game utility, which gets you, I guess, thinking more actively about grade than you otherwise might. Especially if you were playing this for the first time and it was maybe your first Tales game and you wouldn't know to be thinking about the economy of grade otherwise. Because I remember that as a kid, the first time I played Symphonia, I got to the end and I was like, oh, grade, this thing that had been happening at the end of every battle, I guess I should have been paying more attention to it. But you don't really have any reason to in a game like that because it doesn't come up until the end of the game. Father Brunner! That's the name of the priest I was thinking of. Yeah, let's go meet Chancellor Bartlow. See what he's all about. I'm thinking too, I don't want to commit to anything yet, but I tweeted about this earlier today. Being hot on the heels of wrapping up Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm not going to do any spoilers on the stream, so don't worry about that, but I started kind of thinking about what might be interesting to write about or talk about or think about, and I still have Future Redeemed, the Xenoblade Chronicles 3, fresh on my mind as well. Excuse me, the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC fresh on my mind. And part of me is starting to think there might be a really interesting comparative and contrastive essay or study to conduct between the two of those. So it's early days, but that's kind of piqued my fancy.
What's this about?
Something I might do
Lady
next.
Alicia. Lord Bartlow's orders were to allow Shepherd Sorey through. We didn't know he'd have a companion.
His Eminence Lord Bartlow is with a visitor at the moment. Please accompany me to the waiting room. This way.
I cannot believe this.
Talk about a show of force. Oh, we can't talk to Alicia right now. Tons of little escort sequences in Zisteria. I wonder when they added those in the series, if that was something new for this game, that's why they're peppering the gameplay with them so frequently. Or if it came in the last few installations that we haven't played yet.
Please, wait here for the time being.
Hey, Grail, howdy. Good to see you again. Good evening indeed. Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a good weekend. So now we're getting a connection drawn between specifically the politics of the human world and the sorts of events
Vista Point nearby.
that beget corruption and malevolence. Helionization? I don't know that that's a noun, but we can call it a noun. Amen to that. Keep the great vibes going. I like the way you think.
Whoa! There's like infinite books!
Just what you'd expect from a royal palace. Quite a collection of rare and valuable tomes.
Lots that deal with history and ancient relics too! Oh, I just want to sit and read them all.
Oh my! This book has an interesting title.
Mad Screams of Love. A poetry book, maybe?
Let's check it out.
Yeah, careful! It's gonna look like the book's floating in midair.
Don't worry, Alicia will hand wave it away for us somehow.
Oh, here, gimme. I'll hold it.
Wow, Mad is right.
An ode to young passions. A lonely voice, screaming love and
Come on, yo, he grew up in Elysia, though. They had, what, like, one book between them, maybe? I don't think there was a library there.
Again to cover it.
So that's what's so mad about it.
It's all relative, right?
It all sounds pretty good to me.
Huh? Sorey, I think that's because you're so...
So inherently enthusiastic.
Oh, is that right?
Guys okay?
Good looking out,
You look
Grail.
kind
Thanks
of,
for letting me know.
Mad.
That's one that I would not have caught since I, as I've mentioned before on this stream, have tried to get through Zillia more than once, but have not actually managed it yet. I do want to, though. It's on my short list to get back to those two games. This is also an instance of something that has been frustrating me in, well, I guess in this and Dawn of the New World before it. Like, when Tales games have bookshelves, but they don't let you interact and read the books on them, because the games frequently do let you read a lot of the books on the bookshelves that show up in different rooms. Like Symphonia did that. It's a big part of Tales of the Abyss. And so, given that they're so thoughtful about it when they do think about it, it's very frustrating to me when they don't. Oh, good call. Leave it to a Tales game to call out like a side event from a different Tales game. That's pitch perfect. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, you could say the same is true for so much side content in games, right? Especially games like this where there are different branches in the playthroughs depending on what you choose to do, and so you might not see all of the side content on a given playthrough, but just the fact that it's there, and especially when you do get into the game, you can be encouraged to like dive deeper and read the books and do stuff like that to better understand the world. I mean, looking at the library in Tales of the Abyss was a big part of my actual research for analyzing and writing about the world, and I feel like it's a really cool part of the interactive worlds of video games when they let you do that, because they don't always, as we can see here. Alright, learning a little more about the monarchy here. We've got a young king, surrounded by chancellors, probably trying to use him as a puppet king. We don't care for Alicia, probably because she speaks her own mind, is pure-hearted. She didn't even need to hand wave it away. He was too afraid that he was going nuts to actually say anything.
Lord Bartlow is ready for you. To the Roundtable chamber, if you please.
You're telling me there's a round table
wait here,
chamber
princess.
in Rountabel Palace?
We were told that you were to receive...
Castle, I'm sorry,
different
not palace,
orders.
castle.
About Marlind?
Yes. Please stay here.
Fine.
Alicia?
It's about a yet unfinished job. Sorry, but I'm staying behind after all.
This way. I shall guide you to the Roundtable chamber.
Did they leave her behind on purpose?
I bet they did. The malevolence isn't gone yet.
I remember this from my first playthrough as Hysteria. And I don't think this is really a spoiler because we're already seeing it in action. That's what's gotten me to think of it. I feel like, I don't know if it's fair to say they didn't know what they wanted to do with Alicia, or just if she occupies a really unusual role in kind of the landscape of JRPG parties, because it's kind of very hard for me to know what to think of her, how to place her in the party, because she so often weaves in and out of the party. Like, we've already seen her come and go, and we reconnoitered with her just to, like, walk to the castle, and then as we've seen, we just get separated from her. And I know that, like, the DLC, as I mentioned at the top of the stream of Hysteria, it focuses on, like, a specifically Alicia story, which I've never played, but we're going to do as part of the stream. So I almost wonder whether they were trying to intentionally leave her outside the scope of the narrative in order to motivate people playing the DLC, but I don't know. It's got me curious this time around, to say the least. I know. I was saying at the top of when I started streaming Hysteria Grail, I don't know if you caught this part, but part of why I was excited to replay this game with this timing is because obviously Final Fantasy 16 is coming out, and the last Final Fantasy title that we got, or the last mainline one anyway, Final Fantasy 15, was also very much like a shot-for-shot Jesus narrative. And there's something, especially as I get older, that strikes me as almost kind of like very wholesome about a narrative with that sort of just simplicity and sincerity in the JRPG world. So it felt very much of a piece with that to be doing Hysteria, because, as you say, like, Jesus narrative. Sorry, I'm just catching up on your messages. Yes, the second most controversial part. And we will talk about the most controversial part when we get to it, because I know what you're talking about. It speaks for itself. Or should I say, she speaks for herself. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Sorry to have kept you waiting, gentle shepherd. Please, take a seat.
Poison pot pie.
Now, that's a delicacy
I
in these
promise
parts.
you, it's not poisoned.
We simply felt it would be best to be closer to you.
Let me introduce you. This is Military Chancellor Mathia, leader of the Royal Army.
The least threatening
This
looking
is
men in the
Professor
world.
Simon, administrator of the law in Highland. And this is Archbishop Nathael, the highest-ranking holy man in the kingdom.
And last, the man who manifests the will of the king himself.
Bartlow.
I'm Sorey. Thank you very much for your invitation. We have much to discuss.
I'm trying to remember whether I watched Game of Thrones
Sorey,
in my
I hope
history,
you don't trust
like,
them.
before or after I played Tales of Hysteria, because
That, or perhaps he's
this
just
whole
that
setup
much of a
is reminding me a lot of certain parts of Game of
It's
Thrones,
quite delicious.
which I don't remember
Though I
feeling
would've liked to
the
let
first time I
Alicia
played
taste
it.
as well.
What is your relation with Lady Alicia, if I may ask?
We're just friends. She invited me to come to the outside world with her.
How about we drop this silly game and have you tell us the real story?
They're suggesting that you and Alicia are using each other, hatching some sort of nefarious
Characters
plot
who are
together.
literally too cynical to
I'm
take
not
anyone
using
at
Alicia.
his word.
The Shepherd does not do such things.
Oh, he doesn't. I couldn't say. I've never actually seen a
Yeah, come on, Grail. What are you talking about? These guys are super regular and friendly.
I figured as much.
Clearly. Those are their two
Believe me,
character
you don't.
traits.
I don't care.
Well, we do care. It would be quite the scandal if the royal family had produced a false shepherd to curry favor with the populace.
Careful. And so you're asking for proof that I'm the real Shepherd?
Truth be told, it matters not whether you're real or just a boy in a silly outfit. The issue is that regardless, the citizens are beginning to side with you.
It's the nature of the people to yearn for some dramatic sort of salvation. An easy way to have their every desire fulfilled.
Flashback to Symphonia.
True.
Journey
the
of
Shepherd in
Regeneration.
every era has always suffered greatly from the people's grandiose expectations.
The common man is but a fool and a cur. It's
Oh,
an
is Star Ocean 5 not a game worth playing?
observation, but that
I've
is the
actually never played
reality
any of the
it.
games in that
But
series.
in fact,
I've heard
it's
of it,
for
but
that
I've never
very
played it.
reason that we need you.
Me? Why me?
I will be perfectly frank with you. We are asking you to work under us, Shepherd Sorey. As the shepherd who would protect Highland, we want you to reinvigorate the people, boost their morale.
The rampant disasters have rather dampened the people's spirits lately. It's very unfortunate for the Council.
Those ignorant fools. Right when we're on the brink of war with Rollins.
We will reward you handsomely, of course. This is your advance. If you're really all the rumors say, I hear that you're quite interested in ancient ruins, yes? Were you to side with us, surely this would be sufficient to facilitate your explorations and archival activities, would it not? There's no point in siding with Princess Alicia.
She sucks at
The
bribing,
princess is
and
to
we're
be
like
transferred to the
super
city
good
of
at bribing,
Marlind,
so I
where the
mean,
epidemic yet thrives.
They're sending her to a plague town?
Surely even our spirited Princess Knight will learn her limits after toiling in such a star-crossed locale.
Of course, if she herself were stricken with illness, I suppose she would have bigger things to worry about.
So then, Shepherd Sorey, there's nothing to even think about, is there?
I refuse. Darn. Guess they weren't the type you can sit down and talk with after all.
yeah, I'll have to
Probably
check out
better
that
this
series
way.
at some point, Grail. Thanks for
Proud
the rec.
words from a false shepherd. You and Alicia will both learn the hard way what comes from crossing us. Wait!
What on earth is going on here? What are armed guards doing in the palace?
These are Lord Bartlow's orders.
Lord Bartlow, what is the meaning of this? Stand down at once.
Nice castle, but we're done here. Let's go, Alicia. I can fulfill my dreams without your help. And the same goes for Alicia.
I love that we've advanced enough in these games that I can pause cutscenes so I can dull out thoughts without having to talk over them or totally lose the cutscene because I want to actually keep track of what's going on. But one thought that I wanted to say here, which I don't want to lose because I think it's interesting, and again, it's the kind of thought that I would not have had had I not been replaying like all of the games as we're doing for Tales of Praxis. But having recently played Tales of the Abyss, there's like a lot of interesting parallelism and anti-parallelism between that setup and what we have going on here. Without like too many spoilers for Tales of the Abyss, you know, you similarly have like two warring kingdoms. Here it's Highland and what did you say the other one's name is? Rollins? I think it's Rollins. Whereas in Tales of the Abyss, you have Kamlaska, Landvaldir, and Malkuth, and you have these kinds of like inexplicable dark sicknesses that are plaguing people. Here it's like literally a pestilence or a plague, and in Tales of the Abyss, it's the miasma. But then you have very different positioning for the two heroes, right? Where Sorey is like the literal savior being interjected into all of these human affairs and basically trying to save everyone in a world that doesn't support that. Whereas in Tales of the Abyss, you have Luke for all that he is and how he's kind of used as a pawn from the get-go and has to kind of work his way out of that to figure out who he really is and the mark that he wants to leave in the world. So it'd be interesting to do a kind of comparative study of Sorey versus Luke in that light, I think.
Indeed it does.
Death to the knave shepherd who deceives the people! Stand back, Alicia, or you'll get hurt!
Well, I want to say that escalated quickly, but they probably should have seen that coming. Well, I guess they kind of did. Sorey just figured it was worth doing anyway. Also, again, like, Jesus and Holy Spirits versus a few corrupt knights. Like, that's pretty fucking mismatched from the get-go.
I don't know that I can.
We just can't go on like this.
Hey, I'm with you, Grail. Well said.
Could he truly?
I mean, that's why I think it's fun to do this kind of series. Like, all of these games, I think, are worth just a closer look, and especially character study, since they're so character-driven than a lot of people give them.
Plunge the kingdom into upheaval. And if by any chance he were to fall into Roland's hands.
I'd be more worried about your own neck if I were you.
Who are you?
Scattered bones. Assassins!
Yes. That man approached us and tried to hire our guild to murder your princess here.
I think fandoms are complicated beasts, right, Grail? I think especially when it comes to pop culture, like JRPGs and anime and stuff like that, like, there are always going to be people who almost enjoy treating the work superficially, but I think there are always people who like digging deep into them and taking them seriously too. Just kind of have to feel out and find the people who want to talk about it in the same way you do. That's the tricky part.
Understood.
Why?
Yeah, I was thinking about Vesperia earlier today for some reason. As one I might want to replay, because it was one, even more so than this, where like, it really kind of left a bad taste in my mouth when I played it for the first time, but
assassins, are you?
I want to give it a fair shot.
The
way I did with Dawn of the New World. I mean, I ended up having a lot of fun with that, with y'all in the stream.
Thanks to you,
but
the work was quick and painless.
Yeah, it might be worth a second look. Said insincerely, surrounded by actual seraphim who just helped the shepherd to beat the tar out of all of your weak little knights. This musical track they're playing right now, such a fan. Such a great call to action.
We'll have to break through.
We can't. They might die if I use my power.
Hurry, this way.
The rest we leave up to you.
What?
That's interesting. Yeah, I played it so long ago at this point, I feel like I couldn't even feel good about commenting on it. I'll take your word for it. I'll say it's interesting to say that about Vesperia when I feel like a lot of people, and at least in some part, myself when I played it for the first time, felt that way about Cisteria, where maybe not that they were trying to do too many things at once, but that they were almost trying to make it like too big in scope, and yeah, kind of trying to populate, you know, the world and story with like too many things. Like it has a strong central thread of what the story is about, but I feel like because the world sprawls, kind of a lot of the side content sprawls in similar ways. I don't know. I think that problem, because I know what you're talking about of a story or a JRPG wanting to do too many things at once.
Scattered Bones knew about this
And I feel like that's
still
like such a hard problem for JRPGs, especially modern JRPGs, to avoid, just because like, you know, the stories are already so long and then the worlds are getting so big on top of it, and there's the expectation of so much side content, and it's like, if you want to fill it to the degree that so many people expect, like doing all of that while keeping it thematically consonant and unified can be a very, very big ask, I think. Yeah, I think I'm gonna not think too much about the skill min-maxing or anything like that until and unless we're really forced to by battle difficulty. But I will buy a few life bottles. Those are always good to have.
I am ready.
It looks like a pig, but it must have been human before.
Even if a seraphim just eats and eats all day, that's what happens.
We do become what we eat, after all.
Purification complete.
Here's a fun factoid from my deep past as a student of the German language. So, if people watching this, I presume, are English language, you probably know the expression, "you are what you eat," which sounds kind of nonsensical in English. If you really stop and think about it, it's like, what does that mean? Where does that expression come from? Well, it actually comes from a German pun, because in German, it's "man isst, was man isst," because ist, the first ist is the verb is, like you are, and then the second verb ist is a homophone, but it's spelled differently, and that's the verb for to eat. So it's the same expression, you are what you eat, but in German it's like, it's wordplay, and so kind of clever and fun, whereas in English it's just sort of like, sounds like you're having a stroke. SC especially, I mean, between that and Armonization, which I grant is sort of part of the flow of SC, but it really just changes the feeling of the overall cadence of battle. Like there's much more of an ebb and flow in a way that you don't get in many of the other games.
A secret underground dungeon.
I sure feel a lot of malevolence.
I wonder who was kept down here.
Whoever they
Probably
were,
super good dudes.
no doubt they left their hatred here. Hatred against the royal family.
You shouldn't feel personally responsible.
I'm fine. Let's just look for a way out.
Some of these cells are opened. Let's be careful.
It's an interesting point of comparison and contrast between Alicia and Sorey also. Again, we don't know that much about Alicia yet, but presumably, and she's a princess, she's clearly bearing a deep sense of burden about like the duty to the royal family and her kingdom, and sort of what the like impact of the royal family is on the kingdom and everything like that. And she was just born into that, right? So she's kind of carried that burden from birth without choice. Whereas Sorey, like, There's been a little talk in presentation to suggest that he was destined to be the next shepherd, but at the end of the day, he chose it, right? Like, there was a very clear scene in which Lila, said, you have to understand what you're deciding to do by choosing to be the shepherd, and Sorey assented to that transformation. So they're kind of both dealing with the burden of duty, but one without any choice in the matter, and one very actively having chose it. Yeah, Grail, you were very clear about how you feel about Berseria's battle system. I've been talking mostly about, I don't know if you were on the stream when I've been ranting about this over the last couple, but it's
I suppose that could happen
just this battle system, especially after the mid-aughts ones of Symphonia and Dawn of the New World, is just so much more complicated. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do feel like what's less than desirable is how they kind of overload you with the complexity very quickly. And so, even having played it before, it's very hard for me to wrap my head around it and kind of get into the groove of it. I remember getting into the groove of it by, the late stage game, as one does, but I feel like the way it presents it to you, I don't know if they were trying to say something with it, and maybe that's part of, the story or the theming in a way that'd be interesting to unpack, but right now it's kind of just left me a little bit disoriented. Yeah, well put, Grail. Sorey does feel very free spirit. He takes the duty seriously, but even kind of bearing this duty, he's much more kind of, not carefree in a bad way, but just lighthearted in a way that you don't usually see of people in that position. So he's a nice counterpoint to Alicia in that regard. Yeah, I'm interested to go back to Grace's, because I remember loving it. I do remember the battle system is different, but I don't remember that same sense of being overwhelmed by complexity in the way that I do with armorization and skill management and the comboing from martial arts to hidden arts and stuff like that. This feels like there's a ton more going on here than in the average Tales game. But yeah, I feel the same way you're talking about here. That's what I was saying at the item shop. I very much get into a mindset with certain JRPGs where it's if the combat system is very complicated and I'm not dialed into the game for the sake of that combat system, I'll kind of just not pay that much attention and grind it out until the game forces me to pay attention to it. And some games will definitely force you to, so, respect to that. If you're going to make the player learn it, you better make them learn it. This is not same kind of JRPG complexity style, but I'll always remember Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, Kenichiro Ashina, right? For a generation of gamers, he's the classic example of that, because talk about a skill check, that fight alone made me, do a double take and write to my buddy Dan and be like, am I at the point where my reflexes aren't good enough to play video games anymore? Did ultimately beat him and all of Sekiro, and it's become one of my favorite games, but oh man, gameplay challenges sometimes, I'll tell you. I remember using that HP conversion trick quite a bit when I was playing this game on hard back in the day. Because it does come down to survivalism at a certain point.
My will shall pierce thee, just like this spear.
Yeah, that's interesting, Grail. So maybe what I was mostly thinking about was just that, in your words, Grace's was very intuitive in terms of even if it's complicated, the way it fits together just sort of is very natural and is easy to slide into without thinking much about it or kind of consciously processing it. Whereas it's hard to intuit stuff about everything that's going on in Zestiria. That feels right. Yeah, people who do challenge runs of these games have my undying respect. I could never probably and certainly would never do anything like that, but that's why these games, Even like the Pokemon games too remind me of that vibe where, you know, there are so many things that people can do with them between like playing it for fun, playing it to dive deep into the story, doing stuff like Nuzlocke challenges and speed runs. And what I think makes video games of that type so special is exactly the fact that so many different sorts of people can get really into them for totally different reasons and focus on different things. And then you have conversations with other fans about the way that they play it and think about it, and it's like it unlocks a whole new way for you to think about and see the game. I think that's really special. Yeah, exactly, Grail. What, that's not intuitive to you? Come on, you hit circle in certain directions, and then that combos into X, and then, you know, spells accelerate your hidden arts, or no, that's backwards. If you get hit with a hidden art while doing a spell, it takes twice as long. It's first grade. Come on. What a joke of a tutorial card to come up while we're talking about this. Like, as if all of the systems weren't advanced enough, then there are advanced techniques for people who want to get really advanced. I'm excited for the point in the story, like 10 or 15 hours in, when we can start getting into battles and finishing them without new tutorials being presented for various aspects of the combat system we haven't learned yet. I joke, but one of my favorite things about a properly managed JRPG system is when, like, new elements of the combat system are introduced in, like, meaningful ways that coincide with progression in the story late in the game. I wrote about this in terms of, surprise, surprise, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3, because they have key combat elements that are introduced like 7/8 of the way through the story or something ridiculous. But in that case, as I'm saying, it's in a way that is kind of essential to the meaning of the story and how it's evolved. Maybe I'm not being generous enough to the way that Zestiria is making meaning out of its system, so I will try to keep thinking about that as we continue playing through it, but at least at this point, I don't see that same level of deep relationship between the complexity of the gameplay systems and what the story is trying to say.
The strength of a knight exists to protect, and their kindness serves the people.
What's that?
It's a quote from my master. It supports me in times of need.
It's a dwarven vow. I mean, shit, wrong game. I will say, as a litmus test, that fight has me glad that I made the decision, as we talked about in an earlier stream, to play this game in particular on normal rather than hard, because I vividly remember when I picked this game up a couple years ago and, you know, started it on hard as I always do. Like, I got through it, but this fight, oh man, I spent, must have been at least like 2 hours just on this and going back and getting, you know, different equipment and optimizing skills and junk like that, because talk about a skill check, like on hard, this fight, like, I remember as really making me want to pull my hair out.
Oh, I get it.
Huh?
This must be connected to the Sacred Blade ruins.
Because the torches and architecture are the same, huh?
If I may say so, this place is oddly nostalgic.
They both date from the same era. There's no way they'd keep the waterways separate.
We should be able to get out through the Sacred Blade ruins.
So the bustling city of Lady Lake sits right on top of an enormous network of ruins.
You can find a reason to smile in any situation.
Well, as long as there are ruins
Is that
involved.
weird? I'm just who I am, no matter what happens.
Well, fair enough.
That's a great statement of the same element of Sorey's
Don't
character
encourage
that we
him,
were talking
Alicia.
about earlier, Grail.
Sorey
I'm
needs
just
to
me no
realize
matter what
for
happens.
himself what a weirdo he really is.
Anyone who hangs around with the weirdo must be pretty weird themselves, don't you think?
Looked in a mirror lately?
Oh my, what a beautiful maiden.
Well, she is the lady of the lake, I
Wouldn't you
suppose.
say?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even remember that aspect of the Grail. Yeah, it's almost like they mean something different by the word hard, right? Like, it's not just that the battles are harder, but they also want to, like, mitigate your ability to be properly equipped for them. Sort of like they were trying to do the equivalent of, like, a 3 Hearts challenge for Zelda, or, you know, those crazy Dark Souls runs people will do, where they will go through with, like, no armor or equipment or anything like that, or like a level 1 run where they never level up. Although it's interesting because I didn't really know about, like, the challenge run community until you started telling me about it, and so maybe part of the reason that they changed the way the difficulty works was kind of in response to that community, to kind of make it easier for people to come up with challenge runs for the game. Think about the timing, right? This was 2015. People were sort of starting to get more heavily into streams and broadcasting their runs of stuff, things like that. So the timing would work out if they were trying to kind of cater to that element of the fan community. God, what's the button? There we go. Must be another one I missed. I forgot we were supposed to be on the lookout for those. Okay, leave me alone, monster. I'm looking for torches. There we go. Yeah, the camera can be a little challenging, can't it? Yeah, that's surprising to me too. Maybe part of it is like every element of this world just screams big to me, right? Which was obviously what they were going for. But with what you're talking about in terms of the camera angles and things like that, it's almost like they made the world bigger than they knew how to manage, probably in a few ways, but one of which at least was kind of orienting the camera and your perspective on that world. It's kind of bigger than they knew how to handle at the time. But I don't know, going back to it with fresh eyes, I don't totally mind that vibe. I feel like that particular aspect of it, where they kind of deliberately bit off more than they could chew, makes it feel very ambitious in a way that's kind of consonant with the shepherd's journey and what he's trying to do for the world. That's also similarly ambitious, right? Trying to redeem all of humankind. Similarly hard to get a perspective on it.
Yeah, it was just so bright I got a little lightheaded.
Well, I'm a bit frazzled myself from lack of sleep. I'm sure my manor is being watched. Let's rest at the inn for now. We should dry our wet clothes as well, or we'll catch a cold.
Good idea.
Can Seraphim get sick? I hope we get a skit about that. It's funny, like, talk about things that are unintuitive but just kind of work. The way that they have all of the audible background chatter, which is obviously voiced, and then when there are people talking and they want you to overhear particular things, like rumors about stuff that's happening, like what's just popping up on the screen now, like the background voices all kind of get lower in volume, but it's not like that one piece of dialogue they want you to read is voiced. So it's like everything is getting quieter, but not quieter for you to hear another voice. It's getting quieter for you to read something on the screen. Like a very unintuitive way to design it, I think, but it kind of works in terms of how I experience it. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I forgot how punny she is. The whole game's kind of punny. Like, I've clocked a few puns, not even just from her, in the first few hours of this.
Guess we caused yet another
Is that a little Colette emoticon, Jellybean?
Well, at least we got rid of the malevolence.
I love that.
Incidentally, I suppose.
But even so, I'm glad. It feels like now there's nothing we've left undone.
You say that like it's your end.
Hey, welcome to the stream.
I have decided I'm going to Marlind.
That's a plague town. You can't really mean to obey them.
Whatever twisted motives the Chancellor may carry, the order is official. And besides, it doesn't change the fact that Marlind is suffering. I want to do everything I can for the people of Highland.
Alicia.
The Council may laugh, but so be it.
All right.
Yeah, I feel like I don't remember them for their comedy, but I am having a lot of laughs this time around with Hysteria, so I wonder when we get to Graces if I'll feel the same way. So I don't remember it for the comedy, but I have no reason to doubt you, really. I do remember Arise as very resolute and pretty serious games.
Besides, we need that bridge too.
Not in a way that I didn't enjoy. I loved Arise, but I think you're right that that's not really the palette of storytelling it likes to play in. The kind of tongue-in-cheek comedy.
Was off the chain.
All right, let's go check on the state of the bridge.
Yeah, I really don't know that I have any idea about how to rank many of them relative to one another, Jellybean. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons that I started this project, Tales of Praxis, where I'm working through the whole series, because I feel like for so many JRPG series, we'll play through the entries across, with like years in between each one, because we're just playing them as they come out, right? And it can make it really hard to evaluate them side by side, whereas when you play them one right after the other, it really gives you a different perspective, not just on their relative quality, but even just on what they're trying to say next to each other. It can be really rewarding, I think. Hey, come now, Grail. Laughing at things that aren't funny is a tried and true tradition in any kind of media consumption, but especially JRPGs. It's my way of saying you're in good company. Well, Grail, I would ask you to show your work, but I don't want to have, too many spoilers for the other games on the stream. I will say I admire your confidence. I myself am not a fan of assigning grades to games or stories in general, but I respect someone with the confidence to assert them like that.
I still can't get over their skills.
You mean those assassins?
Yeah. From what I could sense, they're practically Hellion class.
They're still just regular humans, aren't they?
I think so. But why aren't they Hellions?
Well, maybe they're good people?
Good people? They're the most feared assassins guild on the continent.
You know about the scattered bones?
Scarcely a soul doesn't. No one's seen their faces and lived to tell the tale, so this is all just conjecture. But rumor holds that they've been involved in close to 100 assassinations. Nobility, military officers, underworld bosses. I'd always thought them just a colorful urban myth, but...
Given their fighting skills, I'd say they're the real deal.
And yet it is a fact that they were not Hellions.
Do you think there is a reason for this?
That I could not say.
A reason they don't turn into Hellions?
Please don't tell me you want to hunt them down and ask.
Who knows? we might meet him again whether we like it or not.
Boy, lucky us.
Yeah, and I do think it can be fun, like, especially if you don't take rankings too seriously, like, in exactly the way you're talking about, Grail, like, just to have sort of a common language or jumping off point for discussion with, like, your groups of people you like to talk about these games with. I'm actually, I've been doing a monthly movie club with some buddies of mine, and we do the same thing. Like, we start out by, like, rating the movie that we watched for that month, but just in a way as, like, a kickoff for discussion and not in a way that everyone takes seriously, right? The reason I say it, just to give a little more context in terms of how I think about the stories of games,
No one has done any work on it?
I think just like,
How could this be?
especially as I've gotten older and I've done more work in like the philosophy
Excuse
of
me.
game narrative, I just feel like every game and every story is trying to say something, right? And is inviting you to go on some kind of journey with it. And so at least for me, in the way that I think about these things, it's much more rewarding and fruitful for me to ask the question of, okay, what is it trying to say? What is the point that it's trying to make? How is it pulling me in as the player, and how do I feel about that? As opposed to saying like, oh, is this like an 8 or a 9 compared to another game which is like a 6 or a 7? Especially because I oftentimes feel like different games try to do such different things with their story, and so when you try to compare one to another, I almost always feel like you're comparing apples and oranges. And maybe, I'd be interested to hear what you think, Grail, or you, Jellybean. But like, that might be part of the problem a lot of people have when you ask them something like, "Oh, pick your favorite Tales game," right? That's part of the problem I have with it, because I feel like it's not even a question of them being different quality, because they say such different things and are trying to express like such different kinds of story, that saying one is the best is kind of like, to me at least, in terms of how I think about them, I feel like that's almost like a meaningless question.
They don't really believe Sorey is the shepherd at all.
Good. Better than them expecting too much of him. Besides, I'm sure Sorey has bigger things on his mind right now.
Like fixing the bridge, you mean?
Yeah, I can't believe how little progress has been made.
I guess Marlind is going to be quarantined for a little while longer.
I want to do something to help them.
Oh, that's a curious outfit. You must be the shepherd?
Yes, I'm Sorey.
I am Naif, a representative of Marlind, the town on the other side of the river. Lord
Yeah, that's
Sorey,
helpful perspective,
I hear
Grail.
that
Thank
were
you for
able to
sharing
stop
that.
the rampage of the water spirit. I cannot possibly thank you
I think
enough.
for me, the distinction that I draw,
gosh,
that I feel like a lot of times people don't draw, is when we talk about how a game fails, right? I think there's a difference between saying,
Hey, Mr. Naif, was
oh,
there something that you
this was
wanted
a
to
part of
discuss
the
with me?
game that I didn't really personally enjoy, versus saying, oh, this is what I think the game was trying to do, and this is how it failed at achieving that thing that it was trying to do, whether or not I really enjoyed what it was after in the first place. And I think that distinction is actually pretty important when it comes to taking a step back to ask, what is the art trying to do on its own terms, and why might that be interesting, versus is it the kind of art that I personally enjoy, which is also a really important question, but a separate consideration, I think.
No, I apologize. It was wrong for me to ask favors of you just because you're the shepherd. The destruction of the bridge itself was a warning to those who have forgotten their gratitude toward the seraphim. I shall bear that in mind and devote my energies to aid in restoring this bridge.
I'm terribly sorry I couldn't help you.
Please, don't fret. Your very existence is a beacon of hope to us all. We should be thanking you for appearing in such dismal times.
I'll see if there's anything I can do on my end as well. I'm really sorry.
He's a good man. He hasn't forgotten his sense of gratitude to the Seraphim.
I really want to help him somehow. Lila, is there nothing I can do to aid him?
I ask as well. If it's just Sorey and his squire Alicia, I should be able to use my powers to cross the river. We can take the medicine with us.
But if Sorey uses his power as a shepherd to carry someone's goods, then everyone else will want to turn to use him as their own personal delivery boy.
And then there would just be, like, so many side
We're not a
quests.
freight company, you mean?
Then maybe we can ask a ferry captain to...
But then that ferry captain would just wind up having to deal with the same issue.
Legendia is an interesting example to pull out, Grail, because it's one that I'm
you're saying
most
we should start
interested
by
in
addressing the root of the problem?
replaying at some point, because I feel like I remember hating it, but I also feel like I kind of just
Meaning we should just help
misunderstood its
restore the bridge.
story at the time.
And in a way that won't cause
'Cause it was
people
set
to
up in a
rely too
weird
much on the
way,
shepherd
if you
afterwards.
remember, where it has this main storyline that's pretty short, and you don't get a lot of character development in it.
Ask the Earth Seraph to help raise a
But it's set up that way because then afterwards you have all these different
That's
like
definitely something only the
individual
shepherd can
like
do.
character studies kind
repairs
of
that followed
like
afterwards could be
adventures you
left
go
up to
on
the
that
people.
focus on different characters in the party, and I just was so let down by that first main story that I don't even remember really taking the time to do the content afterwards. So I feel I probably played like half the game just because it was doing something that was very different than I expected with other games. So I feel like going into it now and at least like giving it a fair chance in terms of what it was trying to do might give me a different perspective on it, which is kind of exactly the point that I was trying to make in terms of the difference between like what is a game trying to do and how do I feel about it. But I take your point and how you were using it as an example too.
Do you have a moment?
Hey, I'd like to discuss this further with you later. Be ready.
If you say so.
Trouble?
Well, I want to assist with the reconstruction too, for Marlind's sake. I asked, but...
Not going as well as you'd hoped?
I'm not the sort to give up so easily. I just need more time to explain how I can be of service. Anyway, what did you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm thinking we should talk to an Earth Seraph who lives on the Spirit Crest about helping with the reconstruction. They could change the riverbed to form the bridge's foundation.
You can do something like that?
It's definitely a possibility.
Sorey, I would like to properly convince everyone that I can help here. Would it be a bother if I were to stay behind?
A bother?
Nah,
It's
we should be fine.
kind of what
That's
I'd
all
expect
need to
from
do.
you at this point, Alicia.
We're counting on you, Alicia.
Right. Leave everything to me.
Then we're off to the Spirit Crest. See you in a bit.
I beg your pardon, but did you just say you were going to the Spirit Crest?
Is there a problem?
Rayfolk's Spirit Crest is best avoided if you value your life. There is a reason that mountain is so frequently mentioned in the legends of the dragons. It is a place in which no man should set foot.
Legends of the Dragons? I don't remember anything like that coming up in the Celestial Record.
Tell me, do you know the legend of the 8 serpents?
That's the legend found in every culture of the 8 dragons who betrayed the Seraphim and were banished to the underworld.
Our tales tell that one of those dragons still remains in Rayfolk's Spirit Crest.
But the Celestial Record doesn't mention anything like that.
Perhaps not. It's hardly reasonable to think that all the legends in the world can be encompassed in a single tome.
I appreciate the warning, but even so, that's where I'm headed.
But...
It'll be fine. Lila's never heard of that legend either.
Yeah, don't I remember you saying, Grail? I think we talked about this on another stream. Like you put a lot of stock or weight into like the gameplay of the games specifically. Because I will say, you know, that strikes me as interesting that you mentioned Vesperia and Jellybean. I remember you saying Vesperia is your favorite. Like I had a lot of trouble getting into and wrapping my head around the story at the time that I played it years and years ago. But I do also remember its combat system as very fun. It was right when I was getting into achievements on my Xbox 360, which I haven't dug out in forever, but I played it on the 360, and that was like, I remember really getting into all the achievements for like the fight specific challenges where, you know, like whenever there was a boss, you had to do something specific to it to unlock an achievement. So for all of my difficulties with the game, I do remember its gameplay as just deeply fun, as you say. All right. To the Spirit Crest. Excuse me. The Spirit Quest to the Spirit Crest. For people who weren't with me on my original Symphonia stream and are asking, why is this guy going back to the save circle every 2 minutes? I will remind you, or let you know, as the case may be, that one of the most devastating moments on the Symphonia Remastered stream that I did was when we were working through one of the areas and the screen just like went black and the game refused to come back, and we lost, thankfully, not that much progress, but ever since their most recent release did that, I've been a little trigger happy when it comes to save circles. I think I've mentioned this on previous streams too, but thinking about what that villager was saying about the Legend of the Eight Dragons, I think one of the things that I love the most about like the tropes of JRPG storytelling, maybe not the most, but one of many things that I love about how JRPGs tell stories is if you hear about a myth or legend in the game, chances are good it's a real thing and you're going to meet all of the people involved in it at some point in the game. Like the Tales games, I think especially, are really great for that, and that lends, I think, a certain excitement and magic to the world.
The mountain certainly is impressive up close.
Yeah, I can see why they call it Spirit Crest, but still, dragons?
Fair enough,
just
Graham.
a story some bard made up.
Yeah, I think for me it was like
there was never any sign
like a
of
creeping
one.
difficulty with its story. Like I kept waiting for it to kind of
Let's play a game.
grip me or have some moment where everything came together, and I just remember feeling like it never
She's off the rails.
gave me that. But again, when I have that experience with the story, my first reaction, especially these days, is like I failed to understand what that story was trying to say. So I do want to go back to it and try to give it another chance. Especially when you know, I also feel like it's hard your first time playing something because you have all these expectations, especially when it's part of a series that you know, like a Tales game. And it's almost impossible for a game to perfectly meet your expectations, whereas the second time through, if you kind of know what to expect, I feel like you can sort of be less tense about it and just sort of read it and take it on the face of what it is. It's like a totally different way of engaging with it, I think. Oh man, a game where all the myths are myths and they just gaslight you. I'm thinking through like my game library if there's a game I can think of like that. I feel like I have like half memories of some of the Pokemon games where they talk about a lot of like urban legends or myths in certain towns, and they are just kind of like flavor where you can't really ever interact with the myths. They're just like there for villagers to talk about. So not quite the same thing, but yeah, that would be a pretty funny game.
I can sense the ancient tongue. We're near one.
I could imagine a game with a very sort of like Undertale, tongue-in-cheek kind of vibe that like is sort of a parody JRPG that does that. You have the normal state of a 3-hit combo that lets you expend a blast gauge to perform an attack, and you can keep comboing off of that blast gauge attack. Okay, got it. So I'm an educated person, man. I have a college degree, and I still feel like studying and learning all the ins and outs of this battle system is mentally taxing. Game mechanics on game mechanics, Grail. It's like, I know we just explained this game mechanic to you, but here's like the deep lore of that game mechanic. Speaking of myths and legends.
Man, oh man, what a bunch of amateurs.
I know that already. You don't have to rub it in.
Take the heat, huh? Looks like Zavid here is gonna have to show you first.
I got that reference, Grail. I appreciate that one. I will say, and I don't know if this resonates with you guys for Zavid or for just any characters in JRPGs, like as I think back on the overall series, I do not remember Zavid as one of my favorite characters as a long shot, but he is one of the most memorable characters to me. Like, his theme is always stuck in my head. He shows up for the first time, and I instantly remember what he's all about.
Hey, it was a Hellion. And Hellions
Not that I love him, I don't, but he's definitely one of the most highly stylized characters, I guess, in the Tales corpus that I can think of. Maybe that's it.
Like you were just getting your
He's just very memorable.
Besides, death is a kind of salvation. For some.
What? Why?
Oh, that's rich. You can always count on the shepherd and his posse to be a bunch of goody two-shoes, can't they?
Tropical Sephiroth. I love it, Grail. You're right. That's exactly who he is.
A self-righteous choir boy facing off against a Hellion. Who else
Needs like a flower crown, too. That would complete the look.
Damn pleased to make your acquaintance, gentle shepherd.
How dare you?
The Spirit Crest is way out of your league. If a dragon were even to yawn in your general direction, you'd be gone.
We're not here to battle dragons. Your concern is noted.
You're not? Well, that's no fun. Nothing adds spice to life like a sworn enemy.
I take it you are here to fight the dragon, then?
That had been the plan, yes. The plans, they change.
I can't think of the name of the guy who's voicing Zavid, but I feel like I've heard his voice really recently somewhere.
Zavid,
I like his acting.
Do you really think I'd be willing to just drop the shepherd and his toadies into the dragon's lap so we could gobble them right up?
Yeah, it is a very cool weapon design, Grail, agreed. And a pretty unusual one for the Tales games, too. Oh no, not the SC gauge. Oh, thank God. I was afraid I was supposed to actually beat down all his HP for a second.
Sorry, alright? That's enough, okay?
You're the one who attacked us.
I said I'm sorry already.
Yeah,
Sheesh.
but like playfully, as a joke.
Let's call a truce. Deal?
Fair enough. There's no reason for us to fight.
See? Somebody here has their head on straight. And besides, we're all part of the same team in the end. Know what I mean?
Are we?
Sure. I don't plan on becoming
Zavid's entire character in one message.
Zavid.
Alright.
I know you're scaring Automod, Grail. Watch yourself.
I'll leave you alone, your shepherdness.
It's Sorey.
Sure. Sorey the shepherd. Well, I got better things to do. Don't forget to run if you see a dragon.
Is it really true that a dragon lives here?
You got eyes, don't you, Sorey? Why don't you try using them?
No, Sorey. I came here hunting a fake dragon to gaslight you.
What is that guy's problem? His power
Coming this fall. Tales of gaslighting.
At all. Almost more like it feeds on malevolence.
I can't respect someone like that. A seraph who would just kill a Hellion.
Yeah, it's sickening.
Let's be off. We have our own agenda to fulfill.
Right.
I feel like that whole interaction with Zavid is also like a cool and pretty subtle way of introducing like the party's problem with killing, because you know that's a motif that you get in a ton of JRPGs, and Tales games are no exception. Whereas the party goes out into the world and they have to fight a bunch of people, they have problems with the idea of killing those people. But it's not really that obvious even in like the earlier motions of the game. Maybe it is and we just weren't paying close enough attention, but they don't beat you over the head with the fact that like what Sorey and the Seraphim are doing in battle is not killing enemies, it's like purifying malevolence. And so the Hellions that they're fighting are presumably restored to the state of being human or being Seraphim or what have you, which then explains why they're so horrified when Zavid shows up and is just like killing Hellions and therefore like killing whatever being turned into a Hellion. It's a cool and, like I said, kind of subtle way of doing that versus something like Tales of the Abyss, since that's still on my mind, where it's a very in-your-face confrontation that Luke has really early on with the reality of killing in battle.
Just a moment. I want to bury them.
Sorey.
He feels responsible.
Let's go, Miklia. Lila.
You're a good kid, Sorey. And since we saved those herbs, we can use them as full restore items. Which is about as deep into the strategy of these systems as I can get. I'm half kidding. Yeah, I'm with you, Grail. I think that's applicable to a lot of Luke's character throughout that game. Like, the creators have a really deft hand with him where a lot of his reactions and expressions just feel very, like, human and believable and relatable in a way that JRPG heroes oftentimes do not. You could very much, like, imagine yourself in his shoes. Such a great game.
Hey, aren't you from the Assassin's Guild? Why would you be after
Yeah, it's
me?
very consonant with the like the Jewish and the Kabbalistic aspect of it that I wrote about in that article that I published last month. Like, just that attitude of facing the reality of death in order to embrace the totality of existence. It's a good question, Grail. After being warned that everyone stays away from here with good reason, there seems to be a whole lot of folks here. Although I guess Zavid, to his credit, was coming to fight the dragon because he's just a foolhardy badass. And the, what are they called? The Hidden Bones? I keep wanting to call them the Darkwings because, again, Tales of Ethos, they are not the Darkwings. But we still don't quite know what their motives are or why they're following the shepherd around.
We should run. Something's odd about this.
You're right. They don't seem to be Hellions.
Agreed.
Yeah, we had that whole conversation already,
I think
dude.
they're intentionally giving us a chance to escape. I wonder if they'll still target me.
Yeah, you're right. It was a skit, and there is kind of a weird, like, dual narrative between what happens in the skits and what happens in cutscenes. It just... I wish there were more consistency between the two. But I take your point. They aren't canon. They fucking happen. Come on.
Weapons ready! Ready? Strike! It's over! Get on! Those things! It's over! Dreams! Yeah! Plaything! Those things! Right! Ready? Those things! It's over! Get on! Looks like we win! What's that? Let's go.
Sorey, what happened to your usual archaeology fever? I'm quite sure there's all sorts of things to research about that shrine.
I can't say I'm not interested. But there are people suffering right now because they're missing a bridge. I'll deal with it. There'll be plenty of other times for exploring.
I'm glad. I feel I may have been misjudging you this whole time. Please, forgive me.
Yeah, I gotta play the Persona games still.
No need to apologize. Sorey's usually so
I'm
predictable.
embarrassed to say, but I will admit on this stream
Very
amongst
true.
friends that they're one of those iconic series that I've dipped into now and then, but I haven't actually gotten through a full game. It's one of those bummer situations where I really wanted to play Persona 5, and so I started with a girl I was seeing, and then we split up before we finished the game because it's that long. But I want to start over at some point, especially because people who know my work and my views on games have told me that Persona 5 Royal is like the most me game that they're aware of. It's out there these days. So I definitely want to. This is, again, I really don't want all of the conversations about Systeria to be about mechanics, and I don't think all of them have been. I think I just sort of have availability bias for those bits of the conversation. But one of the things that I am now like vividly and immediately remembering as being frustrating to me about the way that they do things is we talked a little on the last stream about how they have all of these different like clear hierarchies between like types of character and types of person in the world. You have the humans, you have the seraphim, you have the sublords, you have the hellions, yada yada yada, right? But the way that cascades down to battle, where you get used to fighting with like 3 or 4 people on the field, and then when another human besides Sorey leaves your party, that means that you also can't have another seraph on the field, and so like the overall number of people in your combat party will drastically fall pretty precipitously and suddenly. And that's really weird for me to get used to. Like I love just the standard Tales JRPG vibe of having like, not just having 4 people on the field, but building up your party so that once they're there and available for battle and just part of the community. And so having to swap in and swap out in the way that Systeria oftentimes forces you to do at various points in its story is a challenging thing for me to adapt to. Like, where's Mickleo? Why can't Mickleo be out right now?
Oh, you're sure, huh?
Everyone okay?
Evie is also clearly frustrated by this. I'm sure you can hear her barking in the background. Yeah, you can switch it, but yeah, I mean, I'll show everyone what you're talking about, Grail, because I know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, Lila's here, now Micleo's here, but where'd Lila go? And now Lila's here, but where'd Micleo go, right? And you're right. I mean, to my own point earlier, Grail, you're right that I should appreciate that the game is trying to do something different, and we should see it for what it is. And so, let's put this on the list of game mechanics to think about over the course of this playthrough. Like, do they have sort of a thematic significance to the story? Are they trying to say something? Because they probably are. It's just that on top of all of the other, like, gameplay system complexity. It's hard for an old Tales fuddy-duddy like me to wrap his head around, that's all.
Purification complete. I just saw a monolith written in ancient tongue. It's a unique system that is memorable. And I'll tell you, because hopefully this won't happen in this playthrough because we're on normal. But one thing that I do remember about Zestiria was that with it on hard mode, there were several battles, like in the late game, where the battles went on for like, I think 10 or 15 minutes and were just absolute wars of attrition because the other enemies were really tough. I couldn't figure out how to take them down, and so it was a lot of just like swapping in and out different members, grinding things out, and just slowly needling away until we took them down. And like, is that a good gameplay experience? Is that rewarding to the story? I don't know, but I will tell you that while there are few and far between like specific battles that I remember in Tales games, those are battles that I do remember. So I mean, if you're trying to make a game that's memorable, it at least, strictly speaking, succeeds in that. Wow, yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, Grail. You're right, because like one of the things that I really have been enjoying about these games, especially on the stream, is, you know, when friends of mine come over, they can join in on the stream and play along with me, and that wouldn't even be possible in a lot of sequences in this one. Yeah, that's a whole other aspect of it. Ready? Strike! Fluid surge! Yeah, let's get him! Freezing strike! No escape! Yeah!
Has Sorey learned other hidden arts yet? I don't love spamming literally the same thing. Oh no, we got two other ones! Yay! Gradual development. Oh yeah, and see, two of these have to map to the same art, so it's just all very confusing for my poor little head. Maybe that's something that you can change after the... No, I don't even want to play around with it. We have more arts now. I'll take the win. Don't look it directly in the eye, it'll change. Yeah, of course you do, Grail. Why all the question marks? Isn't that the most obvious and intuitive way to learn arts in the world? He said, completely sarcastically. Yeah, you're damn right it's a bad sign.
Yeah, not only do you learn arts based on titles, but like equipping different titles will give you access to different arts. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't know that any one of these systems, strictly speaking, is something that I would characterize as bad. It's just like, especially going from one of the earlier games in the series all the way up to this, they're just like, every single element of the game that you could attach like a whole system to, they did. And so that just means there's like an exponential level of complexity in navigating this one relative to what you had in the earlier ones. Yeah, so see, we have Sword Harrier that has different levels of proficiency. We've maxed it out. So that gives you different like skills and perks and also different arts that you learn versus if you switch to different ones. Well, sometimes they branch off to different arts, but it's not even clear what they'll always like give you coming up. I feel like, and again, like this is to say nothing of what this means in terms of like the story or thematic content, but just in terms of like enticing me, Aaron, to use these systems. I feel like if they wanted to do something like these titles, and I don't think they do this. I feel like I should check before I say this. It doesn't seem like they do. If they showed you like the skill trees attached to different titles, if that makes sense, like what perks you would get from equipping every title, that would make it much clearer to me. Like, okay, I want to like branch Sorey's development in this direction, and so I'm going to equip this title, versus like when you just have whatever the next art is going to be and what the first of the skills is. Like, it's harder to intuit how those skills are going to unfold as you become more proficient in the title. I guess the generous way to play this is, since this title is already maxed out in proficiency, we might as well equip another one, because then we'll be putting like the proficiency points into something else. That's usually how I play these systems. So defense, that seems like a good one. Oh, was it a thing in Graces too? Yeah, see, I don't even remember that. Which probably means, as we were talking about before, it was easy to just kind of go along with it in the game and not, you know, master the ins and outs with it, but still have a good time and get through battles and dig into the story content. I am going to heal Lila while we're taking a bit of a break here. Cool.
And that'll do it.
What's with that guy?
I kind of want to ask her about that guy just now.
He's always just so blasé.
I also want to ask about that strange item he had.
And what nerve, being so scantily clad in front of a lady like that?
Maybe now's not a good time to bother her. Good call.
Yeah, he's specifically tropical endgame Sephiroth with that outfit of his. We forgot to specify.
What is this?
Is this the domain? It can't be.
Yeah, see, adding new systems but keeping them simple, I feel like that's it's a hard line to toe, but it's pretty rewarding when they do it.
The strongest entity in the domain decides its form. It has nothing to do with right or wrong, or malevolence.
That's interesting.
But it's just like with Gramps. The lord of this land must have detected our intrusion.
So we have this rigid binary of morality that governs the universe, but then also the idea on top of that like sheer level of strength determines the dominant moral valence.
A dragon. Well, this is bad. Running to us a bit of good.
Another great theme here.
My fault. I was going off my own memories and just assumed that any talk of dragons was baseless.
That was pretty dumb of you, Lila.
You mean this dragon is a recent addition to the mountain?
No, it can't be. Are you Edna? Oh,
not quite.
I can't believe it. You, a dragon.
Nope, guess again.
Taking my lines, girl.
Huh? There are two Ednas?
Your conclusion is peculiar. Brother, you must stop.
Brother?
So even my voice no longer reaches
I think Edna might be my favorite part of Zisteria, going off of my memories of it. Speaking of Lila's whole
Does this look like the
philosophy.
tiny cat? Move!
Oh no, I want to run! Let me run! Am I doing it right? Do I have to? Oh no, I'm absolutely not doing it right. Some of the games let you trigger an escape by running to the edge. I feel like you're kind of describing some people's experience of like Dark Souls or Souls-like games, depending on whom you ask. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. You gotta know the secret handshake. You have to do the Konami code in reverse while standing on your head, and you also have to, you know, manage like 3 different equipment trees, and then you'll be able to get past the tutorial.
Is there a school you go to get that dumb? You crave the fame of being a dragon slayer? Is that it?
Edna! I thought you really had become a dragon. Thank goodness.
I want to cycle that line back into my sick burn
People
vocabulary.
would respect you more if you actually worked on your personality.
Is there a school you go to be that dumb?
I came here looking for you.
And so you marched into a dragon's territory? You guys really did go to Dum Dum Academy.
Why, you?
I'm sorry.
Limits the Seraph's capabilities in what sense, Grail? What do you mean?
Was there something you wanted?
Oh, yeah. I'm Sorey. We need you to lend us your power. We were hoping you could make the foundation for a bridge, so it can be repaired.
No.
Well, good talk. We'll head back down the mountain.
Earth dwellers, self-centered, emotional. But when they need something, it's, oh dear Seraphim, heed my prayer. Heed this, morons. And besides, I can't leave my brother as he is right now.
Speaking of unexpectedly human characters.
That dragon, he's your brother?
Yes, that's correct. That is Eisen. He's the only family I have.
But, Edna, was it? It's too dangerous for you to stay here. That's right. What do you even plan on doing?
Well, I thought there had to be some way to cure his condition, but I haven't found anything.
Well, there we go. I bet I can quell him.
Seriously?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Has become a dragon, even the flames of purification cannot
So it's basically
salvage them.
impossible to pick a Seraph and evenly play as them
there's no way to
across the
save
whole
her
game.
brother?
Yeah.
The only
That's
option
tough.
I know of is to kill him. If we even can, that is.
Besides, death is a kind of celebration.
Just wait.
Some.
I don't want to admit it.
Are we foreshadowing, Grail? I smell foreshadowing.
Either way,
There was a
it's
shadow
dangerous to
afore
be
in here.
I won't ask you to help us after all, but you should get far away from here. I agree.
This is none of your business.
What if we all just
Look, Edna.
went sailing around the world?
Leave me alone.
And it was in the past. Goodbye! And kids, they never saw Edna again.
Come so easily. We'll find some other way. The more important thing is, we can't leave her here like this.
True enough.
Well, then I guess we'd better go after her.
You're right. What's the right term for that when you're foreshadowing a prequel? Is it like hind shadowing? That just sounds like shadowing. We're shadowing. That's what we're doing. I mean, it depends on what you call a spoiler, right? I feel like I feel like we're maybe getting into somewhat dangerous territory, but I don't think we've kind of broken the seal on it, so to speak. Because I've already said, and for people who are just joining in on the stream, so part of the reason that I wanted to play Zestiria is that it's part of this duology of games in the same way that Symphonia was followed by Dawn of the New World. This is followed by Berseria, and Berseria is interesting commentary on everything we're doing in Zestiria, except Berseria is a prequel as opposed to a sequel, so you see certain characters in certain states here. The second game goes back in time, you do the math. But yeah, good call. We should perhaps tread lightly with the Berseria stuff, just for the sake of people watching who haven't played it.
Edna.
But we can still tread, and we should. That's part of the fun.
Did you bury them?
Yeah. It was the least I could have done.
Huh.
Edna.
Enough. I don't care how dangerous it is. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm really interested to revisit Berseria. Kind of even more so than this, because I do feel
Didn't
like
I tell you already? There is no way.
Like, as I've been saying
not so
across
sure
these
about
first
that.
few streams of Zestiria, I've been really enjoying it, and I think
Seraphim,
it has
shepherds,
something
the
to say on
dragons,
its own terms, so
they
I want to
really
try to
did
figure out what
exist.
that is. But
There are still
Berseria
so many
does just
legends
totally like
which have
come
yet to
in
be
and
uncovered in this world.
I don't even want to say turn it on its head, but
There
it's
must
really
be
like
a way to purify the dragon somewhere. Just waiting for the right
I
person
think
to
it's one of
find
my
it.
favorite recent examples of a
There he
sequel
goes
that
again.
really
Not now.
kind of goes out of its way
You're
to
asking me
challenge
to
the game
believe
that came
that?
before it in ways that are interesting and rewarding.
Yes. Can you give us a chance?
Without sort of retconning things or pretending the first game never happened, but also
All right,
not just
Sorey.
being a
You
rerun of the
win.
game you just
I'll
played.
go with you.
Wonderful.
But let's be clear.
Huh?
If you really wanted to take me with you, you should have just dragged me kicking and screaming. Let's go hunt legends, my lady. My noble heart would not deceive thee. That went out of fashion a few hundred years ago.
I didn't think I was... Sorey's never been in fashion.
Truer words have never been spoken.
Okay, Lila. Make me your sublord.
Wait a minute. I didn't mean for you to...
You're the one that invited me, aren't you?
Yes, but still.
No, but I have a whole
And
thing.
in
You're
any
not
case,
allowed to be
if
your
I'm
sublord
supposed to
unless
leave
it is
here,
your
I need to be
dream.
transferred into a new vessel. If not, I'll be corrupted by malevolence. Or didn't you think about that?
Well...
Academy valedictorian, this one. Come on, Lila.
Are you really okay with this? You were just telling us how much you hate humans.
I do hate humans, but I guess this one's pretty okay.
Thank you, Edna.
Promise me something.
It's interesting. I'm
That we'll
thinking about
find
this
some
too
way to
because,
save Eisen.
you know, Edna was rightly pointing out that Sorey kind of hadn't thought through the consequences of asking her to join them.
Oh, ye born of firmest resolve.
And I wouldn't say this is a spoiler for anything in Berseria, but one of the kind of core themes of that game is that...
Shouldst thou accept this
I keep forgetting I can just pause this, so we don't have to have two conversations going at once. One of the core themes in Berseria is sort of the distinction and tension between reason and emotion. And what Edna was just saying about the way Sorey kind of just like drafted her into battle basically to join the shepherd on his quest without sort of thinking through the consequences of that. And a lot of the other things we've been saying about Sorey get me thinking about how he sort of like, he makes decisions through almost like his intuition, like not emotion or reason, but just sort of like his core sense of what it makes sense to do, without sort of like reflectively deciding one way or another. So I think especially since, even when we're not in Berseria yet, like this game, as we've talked about before, is pretty directly concerned with the idea of emotion in terms of how that begets Hellions or purification or things like that. So kind of locating and thinking about Sorey's decision-making based on intuition relative to emotion and then reason, I think might be an interesting thread to hold on to as we go on here.
Burden, recite aloud your name.
Havson Euland.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can also see why people think he's boring. I feel like,
Use this.
especially in a series
Edna,
and
you were already
like a
carrying
whole
divine
mode of
artifact to
storytelling,
serve as your vessel?
JRPGs,
Looks like we've been
where
had, Sorey.
the norm is for characters to be really conflicted
did
and have all
understand
these
girls.
ulterior motives and stuff. I feel like it's almost like
Take me with you.
the less boring
To the
and more
outside world.
unexpected thing for the protagonist to be really straightforward and hopeful and optimistic. And, like Sorey said earlier, just what I am, and that's not going to change. Like, I get that there's not a lot of complexity there, ironically, I guess, compared to the gameplay systems like we've been talking about. But I think that, I think that character makes sense for the role that he's playing in this world. And B, I think especially for like JRPG veterans who have so much experience with very different expectations, it's increasingly, as I get older, like every time I run into a game like this, which is just like ruthlessly and unapologetically sincere and optimistic, like that's almost more of a twist to me than games with a bunch of more traditional plot twists. Aaron Yeager? Oh, I missed that one, Grail. I didn't get that reference. Who is that? I feel bad. I'm so sorry. Educate me, please. Yeah, I do respect people who can internalize this and combo off of a bunch of switches and blast gauges and everything like that. And I think I did get to the point when I was doing that. I remember the learning curve. Let's get the F out of Dodge. Huh! There's an exclamation point on the map? Oh, but I feel like if memory serves, that's to fight Eisen, so I don't think we have to worry about that right now. 'Cause that is not a quest for us in our current state. Ah, Attack on Titan. Okay. Yeah, that one is 100% on me because people have been badgering me to watch that for a long time. Or read it, as the case may be.
Waterboy.
Mikleo, not Waterboy? That's a new one.
Call me what you like. See if I care.
Okay, Meebo.
It's Mikleo, alright? Mikleo!
If you say so.
Well, I see who runs this household.
Yep.
Whoa, what? Since when was this a household?
Yeah, can you guys not practice your comedy routines inside my head?
But your head is boring, Sorey. That's what we've been talking about. See, that's it. It's not that Sorey is one-dimensional or simple. It's just that he's the vessel for all of these seraphim, and so the seraphim are inside him, and so all of the relationships between their colorful personalities is what makes up Sorey's character. There, we solved it. We figured it out.
You. They called you their boss, didn't they? I really am the shepherd. I know you won't believe me, but it's true.
Real or fake, it doesn't matter a bit.
I can feel someone's blessed domain.
What? Aqua Blade!
Oh. I wanted a life bottle. Where are my life bottles?
You mean she has a level of resonance on par with the shepherds?
She does? But she can't even see us.
Let's leave the chat for later. This girl is strong.
I can tell.
She sure is.
That did it.
I sense a monolith written in ancient tongue. That'd be, I've had some challenging roommates in the past, but that would take the cake.
This is pretty tough.
Sorey, let's flee.
Oh, can we flee?
Let's just get out alive.
Good choice.
Huh? She's not gonna come after us?
It appears that their relationship hasn't been properly formalized. That's
I
why
believe
it's
that it is
possible to have a
Grail.
negative reaction.
I also believe I made the right call there to flee.
Oh my! That's Dazzle!
Do you know of him?
He lives the life of a vagabond. I heard he had taken a liking to a particularly fearsome band of traveling mercenaries. Why is he with the assassins?
I suppose something happened to the mercenaries.
There must be a story behind it. You don't just join up with a bunch of assassins for no reason.
I'm surprised he hasn't become a Hellion by now, hooking up with an assassin's guild.
There was no malevolence at all coming from that assassin.
No way.
No malevolence will fester among those who are pure and clean of heart. That assassin was exactly like you, Sorey.
A pure and clean of heart assassin? Really? They make those?
Apparently.
It's interesting. So we have this idea from the earlier parts of the game that people are corrupted into Hellions and Seraphim, I guess, based on like their emotional reactions to malevolence. And then we also have this idea that from the fact that you kill people, it doesn't follow that you're doing something wrong or malevolent, because this Assassin's Guild is like clean of malevolence and aren't turning into Hellions. So without telling us like that much about the game's moral universe, they actually give us like a lot of information on like the way morality is supposed to be structured in this world, right? In the sense that like your actions themselves aren't inherently good or evil. Like killing someone isn't intrinsically wrong. It's all about sort of your inner states, whether that's your emotions or your intention behind your action, maybe some combination of them. It'll be interesting to keep track of that as we keep going.
What's wrong?
So, it doesn't matter if I'm real or fake.
Yeah, it's interesting, Grail. You can see why she would be so inclined to go off of her memories when she seems to remember everyone in the world, and why she's so surprised when something is different from what she remembers.
Humans don't think for a moment about how you feel. But what do you expect? They're humans.
She's right, I'm afraid. You'll have to learn to deal with it.
Well, good thing you're pretty tough to begin with.
I wish.
Still don't think you can help us out?
That is a pretty fun trope, Grail.
The shepherd can command the seraphim at will, isn't that right? Do whatever you want.
No, you're not a tool for me to use. If you really don't want to help, I'll find some other way.
I see. You like to guilt trip a girl into making the
Really
first
just the
move.
fun question of what if we gave
Sorey, may
any kind of person. Excalibur.
I knew she was messed
Excalibur is a fun trope.
Man, if you guys aren't the dullest crew of fuddy-duddies
Game makes me
ever
wish
assembled,
there were more
I was going to help you from the
like
get-go
King
anyway.
Arthur in JRPGs and modern video games, man.
You're welcome.
Thanks a million.
Lord Sorey, it is a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise. How are things looking?
Well, there's still no telling when the bridge will be repaired.
All right. Then I'll make it so that the bridge can be fixed.
What exactly does that
Oh,
entail?
that's exactly what I was saying. No,
Forgive me,
I was
but I'm a bit
I was
confused,
saying when I
Lord
play
Sorey.
this, I find the like the King Arthur lore aspect of it so charming
In
that it
any
makes me wish
case,
we got more of
I
it.
shall summon Lady Alicia. Please, wait here a moment.
Wait a minute. You're going to do this right away?
Yeah. I want to cheer them up as soon as
I guess you
possible.
could kind of think about Xenoblade games
But-
as quasi King Arthur narratives because they have
Don't you know what humans
like
will think about
legendary
you if you
swords that are
demonstrate
kind of
power that transcends
Excalibur-ish.
their simple understanding?
That'd be interesting to think about. I wonder if anyone's ever done that kind of a
I
reading of
do
them.
indeed.
Well, okay.
I feel like you'd kind of be
suit
forcing
yourself.
it, but
Maybe you like being
it might
treated
bring
like
out
a
interesting
monster.
aspects of the story that you wouldn't really see otherwise.
It's your call. I won't stop you. But think carefully about who stands to lose the most from what they're warning you about.
Right.
This is a cool choice that ties in with what we were talking about in the last stream in terms of the difference between like kind of magic realism versus real fantasy and how the other people in the world who bear witness to Sorey's deeds like see him relative to whether or not they're able to see the seraphim and how they feel about the seraphim if they have faith and things like that. But I think I always choose to wait when I've done this in the past too, just because I don't know. I don't know if it's out of a desire to like not have Sorey be ostracized or a feeling that like we've seen in some of the other theming of parts of this stream, like it seems like the way that the moral universe is trying to repair itself in this game is through like getting people to want to act well of their own accord rather than because they're witnessing miracles. So it's like you almost want the shepherd to get them to do right by themselves and each other just because it's the right thing to do rather than because of the shepherd. That kind of paradox of the savior, right? So I don't know if waiting is the correct option in the world, so to speak, but I think it's the one that I've gone with in the past and I will go with this time.
Changed your mind, I take it?
Yeah. Better we do it late at night after everyone's gone to bed.
Okay, fine by me.
Sorry. I know everyone was worried about me. I probably just wasn't thinking.
You tend to take too much on by yourself.
Yeah. I'll watch out.
Oh, Sorey, you're back.
Hey!
Lord Sorey, what exactly is it you intend to do?
Well,
Alicia, we decided it wouldn't be good for Sorey to draw too much attention here. We're waiting till midnight. So...
Well, the sun has already set. Why don't we handle this first thing tomorrow?
Ah, a fine idea. Very well.
Then we'll see you tomorrow. Incidentally, Nafe, regarding the transport of your goods to Marlind...
Oh, yes. Of course.
You're the best, Alicia.
Now then, let us wait until midnight.
Okay, here goes.
That's really cool how it shows you the scene from both perspectives. Like, one is able to see the seraphim personified versus someone who just sees Sorey as this kind of savior performing a miracle that's inexplicable.
My word!
Nafe!
You didn't see anything!
I scarcely believe what I'm seeing. So this is the Shepherd's power.
Yeah, I was mentioning that earlier, Grail. It's cool how many more like anime
Mr.
cut-ins they
Nafe, I
have
can explain.
relative to the earlier
This
games.
means Marlind is saved. Oh, joyous day.
Definitely
Thank
adds
you.
some more texture to the
Thank
experience,
you so
I think.
much. 3 cheers for the Shepherd.
You don't have to thank me.
Lord Sorey, you intend to head out right away, don't you? In order to avoid prying eyes.
Yeah, we're going to go to Marlind from here.
I suspected as much. Then, if you may, please escort Lady Alicia with you as well.
Mr. Nafe?
Lady Alicia, I know your position is a difficult one, but your duty in Marlind is all too crucial. Please go at once and demonstrate your famed ability and sincerity.
So,
And you know what you do after that, Grail? You would go home and you would write a book about it, and everyone would call it a miracle, and that's how a religion would get started. The Church of the Good Shepherd, baby!
I may be stuck here for now, but if you two are in Marlind, then I will know I can rest easy. Please, attend to your duties and leave the bridge to me.
Understood.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nafe. You have my thanks.
I shall make sure the bridge is even better than before, milady.
So there are those who understand.
Yes.
This is the happiest I've been in a while.
Crying I'll puke.
Nafe, might we take some medicine from you?
Can I ask such a thing after all you've done?
Yeah.
Thank you. I am in your debt once more.
I think we'll be off now. Thanks for all your help, Nafe.
Oh, poppycock. It is I who should be thanking you.
Let's go, Alicia.
Will I really be able to cross the river with you?
Of course, if it's just you. You've already made the Squire's pact.
Mr. Nafe, thank you for being so understanding. We shall meet again.
Lord Sorey, thank you so much. Lady Alicia, I leave matters in Marlind to your capable hands.
Jokes aside, though, I think about the way that this game treats characters like Nafe, and I think it is an interesting way of showing devoutness, where there are these actual like personifications of like holy elemental spirits, the seraphim, and it's a thing within the world that certain characters can literally see those, as Sorey can and as Alicia can after she makes the Squire's Pact. But then there are also scenes like that with characters who just are really good of heart and, you know, want the best for their community and, you know, respect Sorey on his mission, like Nafe. And it's not like he can literally see the seraphim, but as they're all surrounding him and he's kind of just acknowledging what's been done in the good spirit of Sorey, it's like he can see them even though he doesn't literally see them. And I think there's a special, really kind of touching magic to showing someone's devoutness in that way. Yeah, that's a funny point about the panaceas, Grail. I guess they're not strictly speaking panaceas. They don't cure everything. Hey, Flamesaber. Yeah, nice to see you again. We are doing kind of low to no spoiler discussions just for the sake of people who are sitting in and watching it for the first time. I've played it before. It's a replay for me, and Grail has played it before. But yeah, please try to avoid spoilers.
Incredible.
For those who are experiencing it for the first time through the stream.
River is no trouble for a shepherd.
But you should still avoid using your powers in front of other people.
Yeah, you're probably right.
She is. If Earth Dwellers are there to freak out every time like this one does, I may slip my wrists.
Seraph Edna,
We've been talking a lot about the complexity of the systems, Flamesaber.
Yeah. And we're already on a first-name basis.
And complexity that's really kind of front-loaded as you get into the game, so it can be a lot to get on board with right off the bat.
Sorry, then do the Norman Karena as penance.
I think that creates a bit of a barrier to entry.
You don't know it? How disrespectful.
Please forgive me.
If you're sorry, then do the Norman Karena as penance.
Edna, don't
Welcome to Edna!
Lila, you understand that Edna is toying with Alicia, don't you? Do something.
Sorry, I just thought maybe if they had a chance to talk together, they might, become friends.
Alicia, this is just how Edna is. You can't take anything she says seriously.
Spoken like a true Meebo.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't realize you hadn't finished it, Grail.
Okay, enough.
Maybe you said that and I just totally missed it. Yeah, it would be fun for you to be playing it on your own once we get to that point in the stream. A little bit more of a gaming book club, which is one of my favorite things to do. Playing games with someone else and talk about it. Edna. Parasols, Normans, Dragon Brothers. She's got it all.
Shall we begin?
Be gone! Strike!
Oh, thank God, another human's back so we can have 4 people in our party again. Gotta enjoy it while it lasts.
I better get it together.
Splendid job, Sorey.
Let's keep it up.
There's no law that you have to return money you find. You can just take it. Put it in your pocket. Buy a boat, I don't care.
I don't think we've checked that monolith out yet.
Eagles attack while retreating.
So it's best to aim right after it attacks.
Well, because she's a squire, right? I mean, yeah, definitely frustrating from a gameplay perspective that she can't armatize, but I think,
Do not underestimate.
especially in terms of what they were going for with the whole King Arthur motif, it's honestly a little frustrating that Sorey doesn't get more knights, but she seems to be serving that sort of subordinate role with her own abilities and obligations as, like, not just his squire, but a knight of her own kingdom, right? And princess. This has got to be it, right? Sickville? Yes, we are looking for the pandemic. Oh, we found it.
Is this because of the epidemic? I take it that you're not good around dogs.
Not
I think I know what you mean,
particularly.
Grail.
Miklio's just worried about claws and
Yeah, that's right. This is the real foreshadowing. This was the pandemic, pre-pandemic.
What?
Bandai Namco, modern day Nostradamus.
How are Sorey's capabilities as a shepherd?
Well, I think he's quite talented.
I think you're kind of overrating him.
And his friendship with you makes it all the better.
I think you're definitely overrating that.
A Hellion right here in town?
Of course. Look how full of malevolence this place is.
And that just now was a dog hellion, wasn't it?
Right. That was a hellhound. The pathogen itself has assumed Hellion form.
The plague itself?
Oh, I forgot it's a demonic illness.
Let's hurry to the sanctuary and deliver the medicine.
Is the year really 2020, Grail? I just played that, and I feel like I would have clocked it. That sounds right. I definitely, I remember the prophecy that you're talking about. I'm telling you, these games, they're plague stories. Zavid. We didn't talk about this when Zavid showed up, but I think one of the reasons that he's so memorable to me is, speaking of fights that totally broke me when I was playing this on hard difficulty back in the day, the I guess this is a minor spoiler, but the first time you have to properly battle him, like, oh my goodness. I still have acid flashbacks to that. I'll have to look up that scene to chuckle at it with this conversation in mind, then, Grail.
Is that a monolith?
At this point, we should be able to buy some equipment that just has better raw stats, which I can get on board with. Yeah, I'm interested to get to Berseria, Flamesaber. We're going to do that after this one. Because honestly, that was part of the reason that I wanted to replay both of them, was because Berseria was really memorable to me. But it was memorable in the sense that I feel like a good prequel should be, where I feel like it just totally like put the first game in a different context, and in a way that wouldn't have been the same if it just told its story without Zisteria in the background. So I only played it once. I'm excited to go back to it. I don't remember it perfectly, but I do remember really liking the way that it was in conversation as a follow-up to this game. Okay, yeah, that reading of the prophecy sounds more accurate to me, Grail. But yeah, no, I know I mean, it's all about the miasma, but that timing on the years is funny. Because it was just in the sweet spot, right, in terms of like when the game was when it came out and the years it was trying to play with in terms of feeling like somewhat contemporary with the years that we had and projecting into the future a little bit. So modern day Nostradamus, I'm telling you. Yeah, and I feel like if I played Berseria first, like, it's the same thing I feel when people talk about, oh, which of the Star Wars movies should I watch first or second? Like, stories are told such that the later ones are in conversation with and, like, making commentary on the earlier ones, right? And so I think if you watch it out of order, even if that kind of fixes the timeline in your head, so to speak, you oftentimes, like, the price you pay, I think, is losing a lot of the thread of, you know, what the storytellers were trying to express through it. Yeah, Grail, I know what you're talking about the miasma thing. Don't worry. I was mostly just like, I didn't remember it was exactly 2020. I knew it was like 2000 something, but I just didn't remember that was the exact date. I had it going as my my bedtime game for a while, so it may well be that my eyebrows raised at the time, but then I went to sleep right after that, and so I wasn't as upright surprised by it as I otherwise would have been. Right, hopefully this will make us a little tankier without actually learning all the battle systems. Not that I'm advocating for that. I just also don't know how entertaining, to be honest, it would be to stream like 3 hours of figuring out skill management in this game. Maybe for a certain kind of stream, but not really kind of for the vibe that I've cultivated so far. Alright, I'm gonna call that good enough. Toidles. Real Toidles. Listen, with the amount of time it takes me to actually process what these tutorials are saying, between like the complexity of the systems and me trying to keep track of the story while also having conversations with y'all on the stream, like it could be a 5-hour stream of just me getting through the tutorial cards that we've gotten so far. Yeah, careful with the spoiler territory, Flamesaber. We don't broach too much for people who haven't played this, or especially Berseria after this yet. To the sanctuary. All right. I can follow a map. Grail, I joke with my friend and colleague Dan Hughes, who contributes to the site and whom I love dearly, but I'll rib him oftentimes because I'm actually personally pretty anal about spoilers. Like, a lot of things that people would not consider to be spoilers, I consider spoilers, and I'll get like frustrated if I find out about a game before I'm going to play it. And he knows this. And he is the king of saying like, okay, so you should really like watch this or play this, and this isn't a spoiler for it, but, and of course right afterwards it's like, man, why did you tell me that? Just tell me to play it, I'll play it. I don't want to know anything going into it. That's the tricky thing about spoilers, right? Is I feel like different people have such a different sense in their head of what counts as a spoiler or not. So it's like, oh, it's really tricky to talk about anything and be confident that you're not not spoiling it for people who haven't played it yet.
The disease has spread to our ranks. We cannot even exterminate the wild dogs.
At this rate, the entire kingdom may very well succumb to its ravages.
By the stars.
First, please distribute the medicine.
Oh yeah, I think it comes from a good place. Like, especially when you're talking with,
Things
like
will be okay.
your gaming crew or
They've got
whatever.
resources now.
Like, if you find something you really love, you're going to want
And
to
we
talk
can
about
help
it and share it
dispatch
with
the
those people.
hellhounds.
And it can be really hard not to be able to. And you want to tell them enough to kind of like tease them and get them excited enough that they're going to play it, and then you can really talk about
A
it.
stronger Hellion, born of powerful malevolence.
So it's kind of an unsolvable problem, I think. But born of good intentions. Which, if we've learned nothing else from Zisteria so far, is what counts. Boy, exploring this town really does play differently after the pandemic, though. I mean, this is pretty sobering. I remember, it really calls to mind hearing the reports of all the hospitals that, ran out of beds and so they didn't have anywhere to put people. Like, oh, really dark.
Gotcha, Gald.
I remembered immediately when I started the Tales of Praxis project with Tales of Symphonia how kind of sobering and realistic these games depict, like a lot of just human evil and suffering. Like, just a few hours into Symphonia, you have pretty much a direct equivalent of concentration camps going on. And yeah, I remember even the first time I played this, going to this town especially, there's a similarly kind of human and uncomfortably real vibe to it. Yeah, true that, Grail. True that.
No, it's just a Hellion.
I think a lot of people are used to ignoring the realities of sickness.
It's landing over there!
Don't tell me you're gonna fight it. It looks like a dragon to me.
We don't know that for sure. You can tell me if it gets too dangerous.
Wonderful. And I wind up with all the responsibility as usual.
That Hellion is called a Drake. It's a younger form of dragon.
It looks like the city's malevolence is energizing it somehow.
Then we have to kill it while we still have time.
Wait!
Don't, Alicia!
Hold on!
Too late!
Look out! Crap!
That was close.
Oh, what do you mean by that, Grail? Do you feel as if the series doesn't have a future?
Sorry, we didn't mean to startle you.
Again?
Well, we gotta do something. Edna, you said that the malevolence in the city is energizing that thing, right?
Probably.
Then we should focus on purifying the malevolence.
Indeed. I expect that would naturally weaken the Drake.
Although it sounds like a huge hassle.
Well, you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet.
The plan sounds good enough to me. Though your choice of metaphor less so.
Even if we do manage to weaken it, we can't fight it if we can't bring it down.
We'll find a way to accomplish that too. With everyone's help.
Hassle times 2.
Slow and steady wins the race, Edna.
Oh, yes. I prefer that metaphor to the one where we're eggs that go splat.
Time to begin operations slow and steady.
I see what you mean. You feel like each game kind of starts from scratch too much, and so there's not that much continuity between the different entries. Isn't that kind of the way that a lot of JRPG series are, though? Like, I think of Final Fantasy in a similar light, and other JRPG series. Do you feel like it's just, like, there's not enough connecting the games for the series to, like, sustain itself in the long run otherwise? Hellionish. There's an adjective for you. I was thinking of this too, speaking of like similarities and differences between the games. Because I was just like taking a step back during that last conversation and thinking about how different the flow of this narrative feels to what we did in Symphonia and Dawn of the New World.
No, I'm just fine.
Like Symphonia and Dawn of the New World.
A history of Mon with culture and the works of
they're very like linear quest driven, right? Like this is the journey of regeneration. You got to open these seals. You're going to save the world. And even after that, like as it cascades into the party doing other things, it's replaced by similarly like linear and clear directive quests, and that's the way the entire story goes. And similar with Dawn of the New World, it's really all focalized through finding the Centurion cores and just going from one place to another. Whereas here, it's like talk about games feeling very different from one another within the same series. Like not only is the world open world, but also the narrative kind of has an open world feel to it, where Lila very clearly at the beginning says like, look, Shepard's job, what you have to do, you have to take down the Lord of Calamity. But the only way to do that is go on a bunch of adventures and figure out your own understanding of the world. And so like the only quest is to basically have no linear objective and just go around and get in adventures, which is very Arthurian, speaking of, you know, King Arthur and the legends of, you know, him going on adventures with his knights, but also very sort of open world in the sense of prioritizing exploration over just going from point A to point B to point C and saving the world in the way that Symphonia schematizes in its stories.
Jeffrey! Wow, it's the first time I'm seeing them.
These are valuable books. I'm hiding them away so they don't get lost or destroyed in the war.
Oh, then all the more reason I should be help.
It's fine. It's a classified location. Don't tell anyone about this. It's to protect the books.
Something's up.
You think so?
Don't you? She was all excuses, and we didn't even say anything.
I'm interested,
I
Gretel.
certainly
Yeah,
never
if you
heard
can,
of any such secret library.
if you're able to share without spoilers, I'm really curious how it felt, like unfinished to you, like which parts of it felt unfinished. Yeah, 'cause that wasn't my experience with it, so I'm really curious. That's sad. Wait, is the spear shabby, or is it the result of refined workmanship? I don't know that both of those things can be true.
I understand you wanting to trust her, but something's wrong.
Kinda funny to bury books in a graveyard.
I'm similarly concerned. Let's hide and observe.
All right.
Don't kid yourself, Agatha. That's worth 1,000 at best. Who's there?
You're... So you lied to us about protecting the books?
It was always just my daughter and I barely getting by. I couldn't even give her one happy memory before she died. Haven't I suffered enough? Can I not have something good for once in my life?
Jesus.
Malevolence!
We're taking these back. I'll be turning you into the guards for misappropriation and theft.
I always knew. Someday this was bound to happen.
The malevolence is fading.
The light of justice purifies the malevolence.
Do you think you can return it to Nafe for me?
Catching her quelled the malevolence?
That's probably what she wanted deep down, to be brought to justice.
Well, I guess that proves that she really did love books after all.
Earth dwellers are such a chore.
Yeah, it's interesting, Grail, what you say about the combat system. I do feel like, I don't know if this is what you're pointing to, but like when I think back and remember Rise's combat system, I really remember it as being focused just on that one single mechanic, whatever the name they had for it, where you can do team-ups between the different characters, which I liked, but maybe part of why it didn't feel as fleshed out, as you say, is because it was kind of a one-trick pony and solely being focused on that, as opposed to, I mean, something like this on the total other end of that spectrum where, you know, there are like a million mechanics and things to operate within battle and otherwise. I do feel like, you know, in contrast to some of the games for which a sequel really made sense, like this, and then Berseria following up on it with the prequel, or I don't know. I wouldn't even have thought that Tales of Symphonia would warrant a sequel, but having played through Dawn of the New World again, it almost kind of feels right. But I do feel like with the story of Arise, it kind of makes sense as a standalone one. Though I will say, like, maybe that's reason, or maybe that's not reason to give up hope for them expanding on the same combat system and continuing to improve it. Is like, think about something like Tales of Symphonia versus Tales of the Abyss, right? For all intents and purposes, very similar battle systems, but I feel like in the same way, you could almost think of Tales of the Abyss's battle system as like a bit of a more polished version of Symphonia's. Like, I think if memory serves, that was when they introduced free running, and there were a lot of other like little tweaks and added nuances that sort of made it feel like the more modernized version of the system that a lot of players are familiar with that didn't exist in Symphonia. So it could well be the case that they kind of reset things in terms of the world and the story that they're trying to tell, but if they enjoyed the combat system, they might still build upon that as kind of a new direction for the way in which you engage with combat in the series.
So this is Marlind.
It is a city rich in history, is it not? I believe even the Celestial Record mentioned it.
Yeah, I always wanted to visit Marlind, the city of knowledge nestled amongst the holy trees. Their shining branches are as a beacon unto the fruit of knowledge and the flower of aesthetics.
There walks this continent no true scholar, no true artist who did not once frolic in its sylvan depths.
Well, the fruit looks pretty rotten right now, if you ask me.
Pretty sure no one did.
She calls it like she sees it.
She's right.
Maybe so. But flowers will always bloom again in springtime and bear their fruit in autumn.
Indeed, the cycle will never end so long as there remains passion for knowledge and beauty, right?
Very true. History has proven as such.
I think you have flowers in your head or something.
Don't you like flowers, Edna?
I mean, they're fine. The pretty ones, at least.
Yeah. And I think, like, I like the case of Abyss, like you're talking about, Grail, because like I think it improved upon an existing system without throwing that out and starting something new. And it also like it added nuances to the system that kind of added flavor for that particular game, but was separate from the overall system. So like you say, right, they had stuff like Over Limit, they had much more mainlined and easy to use mystic arts, they had AD skills, they also had Field of Phonons, and Field of Phonons, I would argue, was something that really only made sense coming out of the context of Tales of the Abyss's world and the story it was trying to tell. So it probably wouldn't have made sense to continue with Field of Phonons, and of course they didn't, but a lot of that other stuff did carry over and inform their later systems. So I feel like that's a nice way to kind of improve while still making each of the games feel like it has its own individual flavor and world and all of that good stuff. Yeah, I'm really excited to go back to Berseria because like I think I had already kind of blocked out a lot of Zestiria by the time that I played it the first time. So I remember it as very much its own thing, but it will be a lot of fun to see kind of what it borrows from this and what it doesn't. I do feel like, and again, I don't want to talk too much about Berseria before we get to it for a lot of reasons, not least of all being that I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played it, but I feel like without spoilers, when you think about where it's positioned relative to Zestiria in the history of the world and kind of the story it's trying to tell and the characters that it focuses on in the party versus the characters that we have in this party, there are like some reasons you might think it makes sense for it to have like a very different kind of battle system and way of engaging with the world and especially combat. But of course that's to say nothing in terms of whether or not you actually enjoy the combat system that it offers, and I remember having difficulty getting into it as well. Dog head back here? Oh no, I thought there was. I feel like there's one hiding in a place like that. Oh, maybe we'll just head to the other star for now. It's in the back, right? Yeah. Very satisfying.
I can sense the ancient tongue. We're near one.
Paper covers rock, but scissors cut paper.
Guess that's all the hellhounds in town.
Oh, we interrupted Alicia.
We going in?
So, are you scared of ghosts too?
I'm not scared.
Would you like me to hold your hand?
It's not like that. You understand, don't you, Sorey?
I'm sensing a huge domain. There's definitely a strong hellion here.
It could be hiding anywhere in the museum. We better canvas the entire area.
Boo!
See what I did there? Canvas is a fabric used as a painting.
I was booing the
surface.
pun, not your comment, Grail.
Oh wow!
That wasn't
I just
clear.
got it. See, it was just enough explaining.
It wants us to come in.
Looks like it.
Yeah, and I think, based just on the conversations that we've had so far, like the few back and forths between us about Arise, I feel like I hold Arise in slightly higher regard than you do, but I would definitely agree with what you were saying. Like, I think the foundation that it's set out for, like, especially a combat system, if they continue to elaborate on that, it could get really cool, and the good kind of sophisticated, where there's complexity there, but it's not complexity that overwhelms you or serves as a barrier to entry in the sense that we've been talking about with Zestiria and Berseria thereafter.
So there's no guardian seraph here either.
Looks like it.
I don't want to assume that the entire world is like this, but...
I think there are quite a lot of seraphim who are less than fond of humans.
Can it really be that hard for humans and seraphim to coexist peacefully again?
Do you really think that could happen? Must be nice living in a fantasy world.
It isn't necessarily just a fantasy.
But look at the reality.
I understand that it may be difficult to achieve, sure. But in reality, there was a time like that in the past.
There are records in the ruins and in the Celestial Record.
When is this past you're referring to?
Long, long ago. But even now, there are seraphim like you, Edna.
Huh?
And we figured out that we could bring back the blessing as well.
Yep. I think this is a step towards coexistence with the seraphim and humans. I'll be counting on you, Edna.
Selfish as ever. That's why I can't stand humans.
Get used to it.
Selfish
Yeah, that's
types
fair,
everywhere.
Grail.
Jeez.
I was thinking about like this whole conversation about gameplay systems too, and I feel like it's got to be a really hard challenge for gameplay designers, and just game designers in general for these games, because like to me it's very obvious that gameplay is a part of story, right? In the sense that everything about the interaction systems that players have with these games and what goes on in battles, and the way in which their characters are able to like act against enemies, that all contributes to like what the fiction looks like, what it feels like, the kinds of themes that it's telling. And so oftentimes I think probably part of the reason that game designers, especially in these long-running series that have their own like standalone games with standalone stories, make new battle systems for each one, is that they want something that really reflects like the heart of that game's like themes and stories and world, which makes sense, but also makes it really hard to like take what works and leave what doesn't in a battle system in a given game and then build upon it in the next game like we've been talking about. But important to point out, as we've been saying, I don't think it's impossible either to have something that's kind of like a common design language and combat system that serves the same purpose in multiple games and just is flavored differently, like we were talking about with Fields of Phonons in terms of Abyss versus Symphonia. So I think I get why the problem exists, but that's not to say it can't be overcome.
I just saw a monolith written in ancient tongue.
Banish Blast is the name of the special attack that we unleash with the blast gauge out of a regular combo, right? It's getting already hard for me to keep track of all of these different battle technique terms. Speaking of complexity.
I don't think we've checked that monolith out yet.
I think I knew that. I think that was why I trained to get good with quick steps back in the day. There we go. The button layout? What do you mean?
Such important cultural artifacts.
This is awful. We can't forgive this.
Steady your nerves.
Is that really a scorpion? It's so large.
But that makes it easier to hit, right?
Pretty impressive land skills. For a human.
Like you would know what for a human even means.
Shut up, Sorey.
Watching these two, it makes me think humans and Seraphim can get along.
They just have to grow up together from birth in a tiny little sacred forest town. Oh. Yeah, I guess I kind of didn't process. It's the same way in Arise? So I felt like Arise's layout made a lot more sense to me than Berseria's, because I remember being like just totally baffled by the mapping in Berseria and the way you're talking about. I think that's part of why I had such trouble wrapping my head around it, but I can't visualize the layout for Arise in my head, but I feel like it was much more logical. And I guess maybe I just assumed it was the old layout, but it wasn't. They had it different for that too. Step on wheat, and wheat gains strength. Step on them, and what takes place? Oh, yeah, maybe the difference was just simply having normal attacks back. Because, yeah, that is definitely what I remember as hard to get on board with Berseria. Well, part of it, at least.
What sinister writings? It looks like they were scrawled in blood.
Not a dangerous encounter.
Oh my! I can see fairies!
I believe they're also Hellions. Tiger Blade! Break through! I want release my Praxis! Way to fight! Burning star! Pillars of fire! Way to fight! Burning star! Pillars of fire! Way to fight! Predatory fire!
That's cool timing.
Predatory fire! Burning star! Predatory fire! Breakthrough! Breakthrough!
This is not good, folks. I feel like the enemy's power ranked up without my realizing it. Okay, so this is one of those situations where we want to swap out the Seraphim. We did that. Gotta heal up. Boy, they weren't lying about it being a dangerous encounter. Do any have lower HP? No, they're all really healthy. Can we escape? I might just escape, to be honest. This is ridiculous. I was, but then they just kept coming. It was like there's no way to track how many of them are coming in because like the number you see at the start of the battle for some reason isn't the total number of enemies. So I don't really want to risk that. God.
Let's take our leave.
Alright, we made it. It wasn't graceful, but we did it. And now we can use all those wonderful herbs that we've been storing up. Is that everyone? Jesus. Alright, so, note to self. Dangerous encounters in Tales of Systeria are properly dangerous. Okay, this was the door. We just went in a circle. We just went in a giant fucking circle. But we took that painting off the wall and read the message. I remember that as being important.
Very well.
To be prepared is to be protected. I concur.
That made me feel a lot better about my life. I don't like those fairies. Now I have like PTSD from them, so I don't even want to confront them. Grail, auto mod is after your blood tonight. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll take revenge on the next of the inevitable army of fairies that I see.
Is that a monolith?
Oh, thank God, a monolith. The more you know, folks. That tutorial can't stop me because I can't read.
Is this a statue of the shepherd? What senseless vandalism.
Ugh. I didn't like that. I didn't like that one bit. Alright, these fairies are mine if I can avoid starting a double encounter. Maybe I'll just... Oh, god damn it! No, I don't even want to try, man.
Let's just get out alive!
Man, I truly usually don't run away this much, but especially when we're nearing the wrap time for the stream and we're this far from a save point, I don't relish losing. Oh, that's okay, Grail. It's part of the conceit of the Tales of Praxis stream series is to be able to treat all the Tales games as a series and look at them in conversation with each other.
Please, Edna!
Part of the joy of it.
Is it the same one we saw in the ruins? This one could be much stronger.
You've really seen hellions like this in that ruin?
And I think it's fair to say that Systeria inspired a lot of the thoughts in conversation tonight, so I feel good about that.
Looks like we win.
Part of it might also be like thinking about the focus and discussing other games tonight. I had this thought earlier. I think maybe in part because of just the size of the world and also the exploration focus that I was talking about a little earlier. I feel like especially the early stages, but even the mid stages of this game's story are pretty slow in terms of things unfolding very gradually. Not that there's not a lot to talk about, but it just is a very different cadence than the way things evolve in many of the other games.
This
A bit
statue,
mellower, perhaps.
It radiates such dignity.
You can tell from his expression that he must have been a great warrior.
A fine man. I would like to see his entire body.
Oh, but wouldn't he be
more or less naked?
That's what makes him attractive, in an aesthetic sense.
Ladies,
well,
please.
It's true that the perfectly toned body of a warrior may be aesthetically pleasing, but...
Alicia, unladylike.
No, I only meant it as a generalization.
I think you mean unladylike.
Sort of thing.
Not at all, huh?
I mean, not much. Just enough. The normal amount.
Alright, Grail, you got me with that one.
Wow, settle down. It's just a statue.
Seriously. Though it's true that King Claudin epitomizes the warrior ideal.
Hold on, this is King Meliodas, right? Not King Claudin.
What? But then it wouldn't match with the style at all.
Yes, because this bust was carved as a speculation on the style of future generations.
I think your interpretation is a bit far-fetched.
Well, I think you're trapped in stereotypical views.
Oh no.
All right.
They're doing art interpretation inside our art interpretation.
We identify the subject. What features stand out?
Wow, settle down. It's just a statue.
Lol.
Seriously.
I do like the cadence and punchiness to most of their skits. I feel like they hit a pretty good rhythm with them. My god, the giggles. Anything but the giggles. I think there's a decent number of girls be like versus boys be like skits in all of the games, though, for being real.
I don't understand the social hierarchy of humans.
Aren't there ranks or hierarchies among the seraphim?
Well, if you must know, whoever makes the best jokes is ranked.
Pretty sure that's your rule.
I think Lila's better response there would be like, yeah, there's a hierarchy. I'm the Prime Lord, and you all are my Sublord bitches. It is literally the metaphysical truth of this relationship that I am above you. For real.
I can sense the ancient tongue. We're near one.
Oh, yeah. Give me that monolith, man. Think you can hide from me? I think it is a really important point that you called out earlier, Grail, how many of these games have really good senses of humor. It's like, there's no way that, like, we as humans could, get it up to undertake any huge existential duty, let alone go through like 60 to 100 hours of some epic journey to save the world without having a good sense of humor about it. Like, you read a lot of stories about how a lot of like monks and like religious ascetics and people who focus a lot on just intense spiritual discipline all have like great senses of humor. Like, they're hilarious. They'll be telling jokes all the time. I think there is kind of a deep insight to that. All jokes aside, jokes are really important. Alright, if memory serves, I think we're nearing the end of the haunted house. then I think we'll be at a good place to call it an evening together. Did we just do a big loop? Yeah, we saw that already. Do we have to try to leave again? No. Yeah, it says there's a powerful Hellion in the museum. Yeah. Get your Resident Evil out of my tails! Do you remember where we're supposed to go next in this mansion, Grail? I'm amazed for all the quality of life stuff in Zestiria so far that they aren't just telling us. Well, I'll do a run through the upstairs one more time. And if I can't figure it out, we can just take it up on Wednesday. Oh, there's a star now. Oh, it's in the other room. Okay. Surely we can figure out how to get to there from here. Don't know how I took that wrong turn. Oh, because it wants us on the other side? Oh, I see. I'm an idiot. I went down back to the first floor as opposed to wrapping around to the other side of the second floor. There we go. With a terrible fate! We're really good at game story and terrible at game navigation. Oh, I weirdly take that as a compliment. Thank you, Grail. I hope that at least some of what I've been saying has been worth that trade-off. Boo! Oh, not the golden armored fella. I remember this guy. It's been fun for me too. The feeling is very mutual. I like that Edna's line whenever you armatize with her is just beat the crap out of it. Very fitting. I actually remember why, so don't worry, there is a reason. We'll find out in a moment. Because it's this little fella. Oh, we got a little Norman fella. A big old suit of armor.
Sorry.
Being all spooky.
What a fool I was. I should have realized you would be here, Attack.
Oh my goodness! It's pretty Lady Lila. How you been?
I mean, not haunting a Resident Evil mansion, so it's all relative, I guess.
You never were a lick of fun.
You used to have cats. Now you have turtles and Norman.
My name's Attack. Cheese to please ya.
Screw your Moogles. We got
That's a weird name.
cute on mascots on mascots.
Don't you know that Attack is a Norman name of the highest pedigree? Means I'm fancy.
I feel like I can visualize
sort
at
of like
least
attached to Edna's
one
umbrella.
Norman being punted during this game, so strap in. Your wish might be granted.
It's a particularly long story.
Is
It
it?
is?
Hey, Lila, what's a Norman?
They're a special kind of seraphim. They aren't quite as powerful as a lord of the land, but they can still be a help to other
Sure,
seraphim.
Lila, you'll explain this to Sorey, but you won't tell him anything about the other shepherds.
Well, they have the ability to boost another seraph's power. They're kind of like a maid of sorts.
That's my Lila. You know me like the back of your lily white hand.
Like a maid? I'm afraid I'm not so sure I get it.
Lila's explanations can be pretty off the cuff.
Silly billies like you could never understand what Lila and I mean to each other.
I'm not sure I want to understand.
Well, anyways, y'all are Lila's friends and all. Maybe I can treat you to some grub.
Which reminds me a little of Napon and Xenoblade Chronicles also. Trying to think of some pun on Norman to do an Lila voice. I don't know, dude. I know that they sometimes are, but I've got a thin skin when it comes to Napon. I was happy with the way they did them in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I felt like they finally hit the sweet spot, but oh man, there were some rocky roads for them before that, in my view. Yeah, Riku I enjoy as a character, but I think that just speaks to like the quality of his character all the more, that he is like an interesting and valuable guy despite being a Napon.
Nicholas, Sunlight Girl, Jean-Luc's Loomer. This is a massacre! Who could have done such a thing?
Well...
You did. You turned into a Hellion.
What the
Remember,
fuck?
It was me. I went out of my head, tore my beloved treasures apart, and now they're gone forever!
I'm trying to map Edna on like the Tales character chart relating her to other characters, and I'm almost getting this vibe revisiting her in this playthrough. Like she's like soulless Presea back when she was growing the Crucius crystal inside her, but if she were like really snarky in addition to having like a totally flat affect. It's fun. It's a fun vibe. I love it. No, of course you don't, Grail. Ha ha ha. Dot dot dot. Yeah, it is amazing how well articulated the characters are, though. The designs are pretty amazing.
I'm sure it's hard for you, but can you tell us about it?
I feel like they've always been kind of ahead of the curve on that, though. Like, I remember
I've always had a real big
they made a big deal about it back when Tales of the Abyss came out. Like, they advertised it on the box and stuff. Like, I mean, those were still very polygonal character models, but they did a lot with just like facial expressions on them that they hadn't done before. So I think they've always kind of prioritized that to cool results.
Thing for art, you know? Moved in here.
Yeah, I was wondering about that style too. Maybe that's just the classic Princess Knight haircut.
And gazing at fine art.
Definitely not a typical one.
But I weren't lonely neither.
Sounds like a good life.
I was happy. Real happy.
Oh, which face is it? I have to know.
But ever since the countries took to fighting, the humans started to get real nasty. That country's bad, they'd say. That country's art is bad. Slash it. Burn it.
So they used art just as fuel for the fires of war.
Man, I forgot that one of the first arcs in this game was like a diatribe on the like immorality of destruction of artworks.
The art on the black market.
It's pretty cool. I feel like you don't often hit that note in a JRPG.
They were laughing and clutching their money in their grubby little hands. Hooray for war! Hooray for profits! I got so mad, so dejected, I felt my anger bubbling up, but I was beyond caring. And then... That's when
He definitely has very sad boy Twitter energy, I feel that. And that's how they become Hellions on Twitter, Grail. We know that for a fact.
I appreciate it and all, but I'd like to be alone for a little while.
Fear begets greed, begets hatred, begets war, begets fear, begets Twitter. I do attack. I do have taters in my ears.
Never thought that the source of all that malevolence would be the love of art.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
It's the Kingdom of Highland that caused Attack such pain. If only I had been able to do something.
Malevolence can come from anyone's spirit.
Especially when that spirit holds hate for other people.
Yeah, that's hard to find for sure.
Seraphim, the influence we receive from the
Can you describe it? I mean, I just replayed it, so I'm sure I would know exactly what you're talking about.
So if I started generating malevolence, it'd put everyone in danger?
All of us could become Hellions.
But no pressure.
Sorey, Alicia, the people in their despair cling to those with power that surpasses theirs far more tightly than you may imagine. Do not undervalue your ideals, nor the things that are in your power to accomplish. A shepherd's emotions towards the people he rescues are also his greatest enemy, in a way.
Okay, understood.
Didn't she just tell you not to be so stiff and serious?
Oh, I guess you're right.
But I suppose I don't need to worry about you.
We'll get started so you don't have to.
Just doing what's within our power, right?
It's interesting.
Feels
so
like the malevolence has been lifted somewhat. Don't you think?
Indeed it has. But we still need to find a way to bring the Drake down.
Sorey, can you head to the base of the great tree?
I know that face very well,
yeah,
Grail.
sure.
That's a great face. That and then the like the face of pure surprise or shock when something unexpected happens. That's my other favorite. from Abyss. So that was a cool insight in that scene because they talk about the shepherd as, you know, someone who's pure of heart and sort of like not susceptible to malevolence. And so I was taking that description in the early motions of this game as saying like Sorey is kind of this impregnable fortress that malevolence can't breach. But it sounds like from what Lila is saying, you know, just because he has this state of purity right now, that doesn't mean that he couldn't give in to malevolence later on, which kind of puts more of the onus on him to remain pure. Although I guess it's sort of interesting because that sounds suspenseful or like it's something he could fail at, but also as we've been talking about, Sorey's character seems so intrinsically pure that even if he could in theory become corrupted, it's really hard to see, at least right now in the story, how that could possibly ever come to pass. So interesting to keep an eye on that too in terms of whether it generates real suspense or just kind of reinforces our confidence in Sorey as the pure and simple savior. Well, friends, we almost reached the end of the fighting the Drake arc, but I think given that it's already 20 past the hour, that's a good place to call it. We definitely had a lot of good adventures on this stream, confronted the Chancellor and his cabal of advisors back at Rountabel Castle, back at the start of things, and made our way all the way to this plague-riddled town of Marlind. Had to remind myself of the name. But yeah, really harrowing to be back in a place that is so viscerally beset by plague in a post-pandemic context. So really enjoyed navigating the fiction and the reality of that with all of you. Grail, always great to virtually see you and chat with you. So I hope you enjoyed your time. Looking forward to seeing you back. Shout out also to Flamesaber. Thanks for showing up. Glad to see you. It was nice when you showed up for the first time in Dawn of the New World. Good to see you back. Hope you're enjoying this stream as well. And Jellybean, thanks for showing up too. It was great chatting with some of the Tales games, with you about some of the Tales games as well. It is interesting to see how, I don't know if it's an artifact of the fact that this is the third game in the series that I'm streaming, or if it's more to do with something about Zisteria itself, but definitely a lot of conversation going on about the other games. I think that's a really cool way to explore the overall series, so definitely excited to chat about the whole range of them as we go on to. Yes, an honor indeed, Grail. Thank you. Everyone, have a great evening. I'm Aaron Suduko, the founder of With a Terrible Fate. This has been another installment of Tales of Praxis. Look forward to another one, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. I look forward to plenty more analytical content coming at you from withaterriblefate.com real soon. Cheers, everybody. Have a good one.